apologize. The applicant is Lincoln Park Coast Cultural District. And again, we have just three variances, essentially the same variance, one for each of the three lots. If there's no further questions, Chair, I'll just quickly get into our planner, who's Matt Flynn from Mr. McDonough's office to provide the testimony as to the C variance that's requested on each of the lots.
Thank you, Mr. Garland.
Hey, Chair, I will just note one thing. We were added to this special meeting. We were previously carried to the board's August meeting, so I appreciate the board's the opportunity to be heard at the special meeting, but we did take care of additional notice. So I know we preserved notice, but for the record, we did renotice. We did obtain a new 200-foot list, renoticed by mail, publication, as well as the signage. And I don't know if Mr. Plata had enough time to get it because we just got it into him last week, but we did provide that proof of notice to Mr. Plata.
Thank you.
Mr. Flynn, if you could raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and state your affiliation for the record.
Matthew Flynn, Flynn. I'm employed by John McDonough Associates. I'm the professional planner for the applicant.
Counsel may qualify your witness.
Thank you, Mr. Plata. Mr. Flynn, could you provide the board with the benefit of your educational background as well as licenses that you hold, if any, in the field of professional planning?
Yes. Education comes from Rutgers. I have my master's degree in planning and public policy, my professional planner's license in the state of New Jersey, as well as my AICP license, which is the national licensure for planners. Both are in good standing.
Thank you. And you've had the opportunity, or you've presented before this board as well as other boards as a professional planner.
That's right.
Okay.
You're accepted.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Flynn, you've had the opportunity to review the application submissions with that were previously submitted to the board for this matter. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you understand the variances that are being requested?
I do.
Could you provide the board, as a professional planner, your feelings or opinion on the variances that are requested as the lot area?
Yes. So as council mentioned, it's a relatively straightforward subdivision application. We're basically before the board simply because each of these three proposed properties is 7.5 square feet less than the allowable lot area. To give the actual numbers there, I think Mr. Garlick said this already, but we need 2,500 square feet, and each of these proposed lots will be 2,492.5 square feet. So really just shy that minimum requirement. I will say that importantly, the lot width of 25 feet is met. So really when we talk about aesthetic impacts and how this is going to contribute to the streetscape, you're not going to see excessively narrow properties. This is going to pretty much maintain what the zoning ordinance wants in terms of that pattern of properties along the street there. So with that, I do want to just, if I may, Ms. Chairwoman, I do have, actually it's not even an exhibit, this is Mrs. Gruel's planner's report. This would be page 3 of 6, which again is not an exhibit since it is your professional's report. Just to orient the board and show them the properties that we're talking about here, I would like to note that, well, of course, our property is this one highlighted in red. I do want to note that if we look to the left, going up Emmett Street, these three existing properties are exactly the same size as what we're proposing this evening. So we are, again, like I said, continuing that trend. We're not creating something that isn't already out there in the streetscape. So I think that we are going to be compatible in that regard. If we look at some of these other properties, specifically behind us, so these lots that front on Wright Street, they do have the additional 7.5 square feet, so they are conforming in terms of lot area. But again, when you look on a map, that very de minimis deviation, you can't notice it from the sky. You're not going to notice it from the street. So really none of it is going to rise to the level of being a substantial detrimental impact. So just to wrap up here, I think we can look to the C2 test, which is the balancing test. The benefits of the application as a whole substantially outweigh any detriments. In terms of project benefits, we look to the municipal land use law, the purposes of zoning. I think in this case, we can look to purpose A, which is promotion of the general welfare. We heard a little bit about the applicant's mission here and the overall goal that this is effectuating, which is to provide affordable housing in the future as well as fulfilling home ownership opportunities. And then I think we can also look to purpose M, which is efficient land use. Again, this subdivision is just shy of that requirement. It pretty much works. I would say that buildings could realistically be developed here, needing minimal, if any, relief, seeing how close these lots are in terms of what the zoning requirements are. In terms of the negative criteria, as I said, this is not going to stand out in the context of the established pattern of the neighborhood or what's permitted in the zone. And again, that lot width complies at 25 feet, which is really the most visual aspect of the proposed lots. So with that, I think that what we're proposing here is appropriate, and the relief can be granted, again, by virtue of the C2 test.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Flynn.
Yeah,
Sorry, Chair.
That's fine. Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Commissioners, do any of you have any questions for Mr. Flynn? All right, did that complete your professional testimony, Mr. Garlick?
Yes, Chair. Yes, Chair. No further witnesses.
Okay. And commissioners, I'm asking again, and I want to acknowledge Commissioner Spate for joining us. Okay, so I don't see any additional questions from commissioners. If there are any members of the public that have any question with regard to this application, please raise your hand, press raise hand at this time, or dial *9.
Seeing none, Madam Chair.
All right, so at this time, we would like a motion with regards to the application of CPB 25-119.
Madam Chair, so move.
Moved by Commissioner James
Seconded.
and seconded by Commissioner De Silva. Commissioner Purdy, I see your hand raised and then lowered. All right, so Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Commissioner Purdy. Is that a yes with your hand raised?
I guess that's
I
what it is.
guess so. Commissioner James.
Yes.
Commissioner De Silva.
Yes.
Commissioner Spate.
Yes.
Commissioner Miles.
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Yes, and that is Commissioner Purdy's. Yes, he says his audio and video aren't working.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you, everyone.
you're welcome. Commissioner Purdy, try to log out and then log back in, please. All right, the next application on the agenda for this evening is CPB 26-34. The addresses are 682 through 700 South 12th Street and 683 through 689 South 11th Street. It's New Eden Baptist Church. All right, I see you. Good evening. You're muted.
That's embarrassing. Sorry about that. I see Matt Flynn's hands raised. He's our planner. Philip Scott is our engineer on the project. We have Andrew Biscio, is he on? And Matt Bartner and Adina Bayou. right. Well, I'm just trying to make sure everyone's on. It looks like everyone is on. Oh, except Matt. There we go. Perfect. So if I can proceed, Madam Chair?
You may.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair, members of the board. Jennifer Carrillo Perez of Conwell Foley. I appear on behalf of New Eden Faith Partners LLC in connection with the property at 690-700 South 12th and the South 11th Street addresses that were mentioned. New Eden Faith Partners LLC is a partnership between Adina Bayou, who is an affordable housing developer here in Newark, with New Eden Baptist Church. And the application before you this evening seeks preliminary and final site plan approval and subdivision approval, along with variance relief, as was set forth in the public notice. This property is located in the C1 neighborhood commercial and residential zone. The property currently consists of approximately 36,000 feet and is improved with an existing one-story masonry church with associated parking and vacant land. The applicant's application seeks to merge the properties, those tax lots, and then thereafter subdivide the property into two new lots that are identified as proposed lot 4501 and 4502. Proposed lot 45.01 will contain the existing church, which will remain in operation together with its associated parking, surface parking. And the requested relief applicable to this lot relates primarily to existing longstanding non-conforming site conditions that predate this application and are not being materially intensified, but you'll hear testimony as it relates to that. Proposed lot 45.02, that new lot, will be developed with a new 5-story, 100% affordable multifamily residential building with tenants at or below 60% of the area median income. That property will have 43 residential units comprised of 4 one-bedrooms, 28 two-bedrooms, and 11 three-bedroom units. The building will include on-site parking, bicycle parking, residential amenities, and a playground, as well as the much-needed affordable housing, while also preserving the existing place of worship on the adjoining lot. This project represents a thoughtful and efficient use of underutilized land that advances several important public planned objectives. It preserves an established community institution, that's the New Eden Church. It creates new quality, affordable housing towards the initiative of the city of Newark towards providing new affordable units, and improves the overall site layout, which by providing modern residential amenities, and certainly contributes to that revitalization of that surrounding neighborhood. During the course of this hearing, you're going to hear testimony from our professional team regarding the subdivision, the site plan, as well as the variance relief. And the testimony will certainly go through all of the relief that's being requested as it pertains to both the existing church, the lot, and the new development in and of itself. The testimony will explain certainly that the variance relief is either associated with that existing lawful non-conforming condition that's on or will remain on that church property. And you will hear again testimony as it relates to some improvements, some site improvements that are going to be done to that, as well as to the new site. In particular, I'd just like to note for the record that the testimony will address the limited relief requested concerning the setbacks, transparency, and etc. The variance relief that's being requested includes lot coverage, building coverage, setbacks, some landscaping, transparency, lighting, which we will address through testimony, and you will hear we are looking to remove that variance, and a few variances, additional variances and waivers that were identified by your Department of Engineering as well. So before we proceed, I'd just like to note for housekeeping, I noticed that it's still I wasn't copied on it, but the affidavit of notice was submitted. I'm happy to resend that to everyone. Notice of this hearing was provided via the Star Ledger publication, that online publication, certified return receipt mail, as well as a sign being posted on the site. I'd like to also note for the record that we had a public meeting in collaboration with the councilman's office on this project on May 5th. And so we did have members of the public come out and we discussed the project at that time. We intend to call 4 witnesses this evening. Mr. Philip Scott from H2M Associates is our civil engineer and will be providing testimony as to this subdivision as well as the site. Andrew Vischio is our traffic engineer and he's going to be providing from Stonefield. He will be providing testimony as it relates to the report that was submitted. Matt Bartner from Thriven is our project architect, and Matt Flynn from John McDonough Associates is our professional planner. We also have the principal of and the authorized representative of the entity, Ms. Bayou here, should questions arise that warrant her testimony. Before proceeding, we'd like to note for the record that we've received 3 reports. The planner's report from Susan Gruhl, the consulting planner, that's dated June 19th. The memorandum from the Department of Engineering dated June 22nd. And the memorandum from the Department of Engineering's Division of Traffic and Signals dated June 22nd, 2026. We understand that the board is still awaiting a memorandum from the Department of Water and Sewer Utilities, as well as a memorandum that addresses the subdivision. And certainly the professionals will address the comments contained in the reports that we have received and will represent on the record that we will certainly work with those 2 departments, the surveyor, the engineering department as it relates to the survey, as well as the Department of Water and Sewer Utilities with any comments, conditions, and concerns or additional information that they need from the applicant. So with that, I'd like to call our first witness, Mr. Philip Scott from H2M Associates, to be sworn in, please.
Mr. Scott, if you could raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and state your affiliation for the record.
Yes, my name is Philip Scott, last name Scott, S-C-O-T-T, and I am the engineer of record for this project.
Counselor, may qualify your witness.
Thank you. Mr. Scott, can you please provide the board the benefit of your educational background and the status of your license, please?
Yes, I have a degree, Bachelor's of Science degree in civil engineering from the New Jersey Institute of Technology. I am a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey since 2003. And I've been working professionally since that time, approximately 28 years. I've appeared before this board, and I've also served as the Director of Engineering for the City of Newark from 2014 to 2022.
Mr. Scott, you're accepted by the board.
Thank you.
Mr. Scott, your office prepared the plans that were submitted as part of this application, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And you worked with Mr. Pernesti of Pernesti Surveying as it relates to the subdivision plan that was submitted as well, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And if you can, please, let's first address the existing site conditions and the subdivision that's being proposed this evening.
Sure. I have the ability to share my screen.
Please.
Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this plan that I'm showing right now is the subdivision, the survey and subdivision that was prepared by Pronesti Surveying. I know it's a little hard to see if I zoom in a little bit. The top plan shows the existing survey, the site as it currently exists. It's basically 2 lots. Lot 45, which is basically this area shown here with the church on it. And then lot 53, which is this vacant property, which has these, looks like some type of planter beds on it. Everything as it currently exists will remain on the church part of the lot. We're creating a subdivision, which is basically going to create will be a minor subdivision, which will go from a 2-lot to a 2-lot, basically just a reconfiguring. What we're going to do is basically add a line right here, which I'll show in the subdivision plan that's below. But one of the things that I wanted to point out is that, we're not making any, new variances. All of the variances are due to the current configuration of the church and the way that it sits on the existing lot. One of the things that was mentioned in the engineering review is that we have some encroachments on the into the right of way, which is which is shown here. There's this thing that's called ramp. There's a handicap ramp that's in the right of way that feeds the allows the accessible people to get up into the church through this way. And then there's this stoop right here, which is the front stairs to the church. Both of these are existing and they've been here for many years. As part of this application, we will address as best we can, these encroachments. If we go here now, down below to the subdivision, as I mentioned, all we're really doing is proposing this new lot line right here and removing the previous lot line that went through here. So, the total area of the project is going to remain the same. We're just reconfiguring the lot so that we can make room for the new, multifamily apartment building.
So, Mr. Scott, just to clarify, the existing two lots, 45 and 53, will be joined, and the new lots 45.01 is the lot that's been identified as where the existing church and the associated parking will be, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And that square footage, if you can just zoom on that, is?
Sure. So for the new lots, for the church lot, which will be 45.01, we'll have an area of 14,700 square feet or 0.337 acres. And the new multifamily building lot will be lot 45.02. And it will have 21,359 square feet or 0.49 acres, just under half an acre.
Okay, thank you. And
Okay.
to your knowledge, Mr. Scott, there are no easements or any title issues as it relates to those two properties, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so if we can move on to the next plan, which will be the site plan that was prepared and submitted as part of this application. As we show here, and I'll zoom in so for the benefit of everyone, when we initially made the submission to the city, we did not show any improvements on the church property. As part of the review, they asked for a few things, which was to stripe the actual parking lot. The lot as it currently exists does not really have any type of formal striping. The people probably park the best way that they can to make things work on days that there's activities taking place at the church. So we are showing striping that is providing, I believe it's 22 spaces on this plan. There has been, since this plan was done, there has been yet another revision, but I'll show that later as an exhibit. One of the other requests was to create a buffer between the church property, because these are residential properties over here in this area. So we are providing a 15-foot buffer. So we are cutting back the asphalt of the parking lot to provide area here for a buffer, which we are going to landscape, and that will be shown on one of our later plans. Additionally, with this plan, as we mentioned, we're providing or proposing a new building. It's a fully affordable, 100% affordable apartment building that's going to have access from both South 12th Street as well as South 11th Street. They'll be able to access, either way in either direction, and can go both in and out on this onto South 12th Street or South 11th Street. Both streets, both South 12th Street and South 11th Street, are one-way streets. We do not plan on changing that. That's going to remain the same. In our plan, we are showing, we're asking for a loading zone, which we are fully prepared to make an application to the Department of Engineering, Division of Traffic and Signals, if this project were to be approved. This is an area just so that, we can have loading and unloading for people that's coming to either the apartment building or who's coming to the church. Also with this plan, we're proposing a new curb and new sidewalk along the entire frontage of both the church lot and the apartment building lot on both South 12th Street and South 11th Street. And we're also proposing a play area for the children that will be living in the new apartment building. If I move on to the next plan, which will be our grading and drainage plan. This project, we're proposing a new stormwater management system that is shown here with this honeycomb pattern, which will be underneath the garage parking lot, which will collect and retain all of the stormwater as part of this project. We will be fully in compliance with the city's ordinance in terms of what is required for stormwater management. We will also proposing that we're going to make our utility connections onto the South 11th Street. We'll have our 2 water connections. We'll have our sanitary sewer connection, as well as a doghouse manhole that will connect our runoff, or should I say our overflow from our stormwater system. As part of that, we know that with the number of connections that we have, we're willing and ready to pave the street along our frontage as required by the city.
And Mr. Scott, you just provided some testimony as to stormwater management. There is a variance as it relates to the excessive impervious lot coverage on this new proposed lot. Based on the plans you presented, a maximum coverage of 75% is permitted, and we are proposing 79.4%. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. The number of, the 4% excess that we have is de minimis. The lot coverage, should I say, requirement is a function of having the stormwater runoff, and we're going to collect all of that runoff, and we're going to maintain it on site, and we will not be affected by the 4% that we are over on the stormwater, or on, should I say, the lot coverage.
Thank you. And that also relates to the excessive building lot coverage. I'm assuming the testimony is the same as it relates to the coverage of the building and the impact essentially that would cause on the project, on the land, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next plan I'm going to go to is our landscaping plan. As we see here, this is the plan that was submitted, at the time after our TRC meeting, or I'm sorry, prior to our TRC meeting. As you can see, we have some street trees along South 12th Street. They're in accordance with the city's ordinance of street trees. We're providing landscaping as best we can around the foundation of the building, all the way around. And then we're also providing the same street trees along the South 11th Street frontage. As part of the TRC meeting that we had with the city, there were certain requirements that they asked for with regard to improvements on the church lot. So I had prepared this exhibit, which is shown here.
If I can, Mr. Scott, just apologize. Mr. Black, I'm going to mark this as A1, and it's the revised landscaping plan.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and this plan has already been submitted to the city, and it's been reviewed by the Department of Engineering. So as we can see here, we still have all of the same landscaping, but we also have, in this area where there was a buffer, was requested, we're providing plantings along here as well. We also show some plantings along this area here, but there's been some changes and we're still working through it, and we'll work with the Department of Engineering to see if we're going to still do this landscaping or if they would prefer that we widen the drive aisles a little bit, as what was mentioned in one of the comments in the review letter. And then that's our landscaping plan. And then our next plan is our lighting plan. We have an interior lighting in the apartment building.
Mr. Scott, I apologize. I just wanted to go back. So the parking lot there, as it relates to the landscaping for 45.01, there is a variance as it relates to the parking lot being screened by the landscaping to hide the cars. That variance shall remain, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
The parking lot, at least 15% of the interior parking area shall be landscaped with plant material. And so you just indicated we do have the buffer area, and there are some percentages that are being proposed. However, at the request of the Department of Engineering, there's a possibility of us enlarging the parking stall size And so that might impact that percentage. Is that correct?
Yes, but it's not the stall size, it's actually the drive aisle width. So
Sorry.
right now, as the plans currently shows, we have 20 feet of drive aisle width, where for a non-residential use, 24 feet is required. If we get rid of this landscape buffering, we can get 22 feet of drive aisle width. It's still not compliant for non-residential use, but for residential use, 22 feet would be acceptable.
All right, thank you. I apologize for that.
Not a problem.
All right, and then you had indicated that the buffer area that's being proposed along the rear of that, that abuts the residential properties on South 11th Street, they will have there will be the buffer all along the back of that property of that parking garage, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Parking lot, not garage.
Correct, the parking lot along the back of the paved lot for the church, correct?
Yes, which is this area here, which right now, as it currently exists, is all paved all the way up to the property line. We will be cutting that back and adding this landscape area.
Okay, great.
Okay, so I will move on to the next plan, which is our lighting plan. In the garage, we have lighting. I believe we had, there was some comments from the engineer about, excessive light on, spilling out of the garage, which we are willing to adjust and make whatever changes as recommended by the Department of Engineering as far as that lighting is concerned. As part of our TRC meeting, they requested that we show the existing lighting in the church parking lot. So we modeled the lighting for the church parking lot, and we do have a little bit of a dark spot over here in this one little corner. We have, looks like 3 or 4 different locations where we're under the minimum of 0.5 foot candles. One of the comments from the Department of Engineering is that we add a light pole in this corner. It's a little bit much of a task to ask for the church to run a new pole there. So what we're going to do, and we'll model that as part of our resolution, if we are approved as a condition of the resolution, is look to maybe change out one of these fixtures so that we can get enough lighting that can cover this one little dark spot in this corner here.
So it'd be fair to say that the lighting on the proposed lot 45.01, we will try and work with the city to ensure that we can satisfy those lighting requirements, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
So there's one other thing that I had mentioned before, and that was us relocating the handicap ramp on site. So on this plan, this would be another exhibit which was not submitted to the board, but was prepared in preparation for this meeting. Jennifer, if you would like to call this the next exhibit, I'd appreciate that.
What is the title of it? Can you just scroll down to make sure we have it? Make it consistent.
Just the dimensional site plan exhibit.
Okay, so exhibit A2, it's dimensional site plan. Thank you.
Okay, so this plan here, which we are working, we will work with the Department of Engineering. As I said, we tried to expand the drive aisle as much as we can. We were able to get 22 feet as opposed to the 20 feet that we previously had. We moved the handicap ramp, which was out here in the right of way, which was an encroachment. We moved it on site so that it will no longer be an encroachment onto the property, but we did lose one parking space, but we still have enough spaces to be in compliance. The current requirement for the church is they only require 15 parking spaces. In our previous plan, prior to this one that I showed, we had 22 spaces. Now with this plan, we show 21 spaces. But with this plan, we have a van accessible handicap parking space, which is here. And then we have an EV, electric vehicle charging space here that was also requested by the city's professionals. And the one good thing about if we do this plan, yes, we do lose one parking space, but we now take the handicap ramp out of what is shown here in red, which is the sight triangle. It makes for a clear line of sight and a much safer situation for drivers pulling out of the driveway. And that pretty much concludes my testimony.
So I just have a few clarifying questions. So as it relates to 45.01 on this particular lot, the EV make-ready space, one required, we agree we will comply, correct?
That's correct.
The parking spaces, you indicated our original submission had 22 spaces. We actually did a modification to remove an encroachment, and that will allow for us to still have 21 spaces, and that is adequate given the space of the existing church, and so no variance is there. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, great. The landscaping, we kind of went through that earlier with the buffer area and the trees. I just wanted to clarify, there's no variance required as to the on-site. The shade trees, there's 4 required, and I think we have 3 that are pre-existing. Is that correct?
Yes, I will go back to that plan if you'd like.
No.
So yes, there are existing trees. It's a little hard to see on this plan, but yes, there are tree wells and tree pits that are along the frontage of the church property. So yes, there are 3 existing trees, and then we show new proposed trees as well.
Okay. And so one of the comments in the reports we received from the department, I believe it might have been the planners or the Department of Engineering, is that we will agree to work with the city arborist as it relates to the species and the location of the plantings. Is that something that we can confirm on the record we're agreeable to?
Yes, we are totally agreeable to that.
Perfect. Just clarifying as it relates to the lighting, both on the existing lot where the church is and on our new project, we will comply with the lighting. Is that a fair representation of your testimony?
Yes, that is correct.
The encroachment as it relates to the concrete ramp, you've indicated that that will be relocated, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And I think there was some testimony that was requested from Mr. Traficante's report as it relates to the chain link fence at the rear of the property, adjoining lots 36 and 37.
Yeah, there's a chain link fence. It looks like it's here. I believe it's lots. Is that 34, 35? Yes. Chain link fence that's shown here, that's existing.
And that will remain, property. Is that correct?
That will remain as long as the professionals allow for it. If they require us to make a change, I can't speak for the developer or the church, but we're not touching anything in that area, so we feel that it can remain.
Right, and there's another comment regarding an encroachment with an existing building on lot 70 that crosses very, very minor by 0.1 feet. I will just certify on the record that the applicant church that's maintaining the ownership of the lot and the building will work with their neighbors. It is so minor. I think, we will certainly address it during resolution of compliance. But I just wanted to address it as testimony was being requested on that. As it relates to the new building that's being proposed on 4502, you walk through the landscaping plan. We discussed the lighting plan will comply. Is that correct?
Yes, we will comply.
And you discussed briefly the parking lot, but we do have, and the curbs, we do have our traffic who will go through the details of his study. You had the opportunity to review the Department of Engineering and the planner's memo, correct?
Yes, I did.
And with the exception of those that we went through, is there anything else that you don't think you can work or comply with those departments and the recommendations that were requested?
Yes, outside of the things that I mentioned in my testimony, I think we can comply with everything else in those letters.
Okay, thank you. I have no additional questions for Mr. Scott.
All right, Mr. Scott, if you could please relinquish the screen. I have a question. Well, no, I see the hands raised, but I'm still going to ask my question. My question is, how many of the variances did we just eliminate? Are you keeping count?
Unfortunately, I'm not keeping count, but we will have a professional planner that will provide testimony at the end, and he will be able to give a summary on the variances that we still will remain, that we will still be requesting for this application.
All right.
So, Chair Witcher, I can tell you the variances as it relates to lighting. Mm-hmm. Those have been eliminated.
Okay.
So those are the two. So it was the illumination.
Walkway illumination and building entrance.
Correct. All illumination variances, I think there were two, like three perhaps that were identified, 3 or 4 that were identified.
Yes.
Both in Ms. Gruel's report as well as Mr. Traficante's. We will work to eliminate those variances completely. We still have a variance as it relates to the drive aisle width. 24 is required on that one lot, 45.01, but we are increasing it, so it's 22.
Mm-hmm.
And then the setbacks remain, and we still have the additional testimony, I think, that will provide more information. But it should also be noted that the parking count is now 21 on that one lot. So that we've done that to relocate that encroachment. So that encroachment has been eliminated.
All right, beautiful. All right, I'm gonna do it in the order that I saw the hands raised. We'll start with Mr. Jamali. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Mr. Jamali, you can raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will state the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and state your affiliation for the record.
Asadullah Jamali, last name Jamali, Principal Engineer for the Department of Water and Sewer. My question is for Mr. Scott. Part of the technical review meeting, one of the things that the Department of Water and Sewer brought up was providing some type of stormwater system for the church portion of the lot. Is that something the applicant will be open to or agreeing to?
Well, I cannot speak for the applicant. What I can say is that we are reducing the amount of impervious coverage on the site, and we would prefer to not have to do a stormwater management system for the site. But we are willing to work with your office to see if there is any type of leeway we can get to avoid having to do that.
It's probably not going to be any leeway in regards to that, as stated in our technical review that we did. So it's either a yes or a no.
So I mean, I apologize, Mr. Jamali, but if you can, if you can issue the letter, I know we're not maintaining the ownership of the church itself. New Eden Partners is doing the new building, and we just have to, we'll certainly talk about the stormwater. There's nothing being proposed on the building itself, and they're increasing that. So I can confer with their counsel who's on as well, and make that representation if you give me a few minutes. But Mr. Scott is not in a position as the attorney to New Eden Partners to answer that for the church itself.
Counsel, didn't you state that this is going to be the same owner for both properties?
No. No, New Eden, so the subdivision, right now the church owns everything. The property will be subdivided. The church, nonprofit church that operates there, is going to maintain ownership of 45.01. So the church and the parking lot with the 21 spaces, they're owning that. The entity that's the developer entity is a partnership with the church and the developer for the building. And that's on 4502. So what you're asking for is on the site that's going to be the church and their parking lot. And so that's going to stay under the church's ownership. The developer will not own that parcel.
Okay. Can you please confirm with the people and let me know, please? Again, this was something that is discussed in the technical review meeting. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Jamali. Mr. Traficante.
Madam Chairwoman.
Good evening, sir.
Mrs. Traficante, do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will state the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and state your affiliation for the record.
Name is Charles Traficante. T-R-A, F as in Frank, I-C-A-N, T as in Tom, E as in Edward. I am a principal engineer and a professional engineer. I'm in the employment of the City of Newark, Department of Engineering. My license is active and in good standing with State Board.
Yes, sir, Mr. Traficante.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's Scott. You have the report from the Department of Engineering dated June 22nd in front of you, 2026?
Yes, I do.
All All right. I know testimony was provided, I guess in a nutshell, all these existing fences that are encroaching the public right of way, whether they're in front of the church or the new built lot with the new building, will they all be removed from the encroachments in the public right of ways?
Yes, we will remove them from the public right of ways, as well as I believe there was a comment that you had in your letter about potentially an oil tank on the site. That will be removed as part of the construction, the demolition and construction as well.
And any necessary soil abatement? Should be-
Absolutely. Everything will be done in accordance with the state's LSRP rules, and it will be done and filed with the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection.
All right. You are planning to remove the handicap ramp that encroaches in the public right of way for South 12th Street, but your client intends to keep the existing stairs and stoop that leads to the front door of the church that encroaches in the public right of way for South 12th Street. Is that right?
That is our intention. It is an existing stoop that's been there for many years. If we were to try to remove it out of the public right of way, that would create a tremendous hardship to the church. I don't know how we would be able to get people into that front door of the church, being that the church sits on the front, the right of way line, all the way up to the property line.
Even if you put it in a sunken doorway and recessed it 5, 10, 8 feet in?
We're asking
That
for
would
the
require,
removal.
yeah, that would require a total redesign to the church. And, I cannot speak on that. It would probably have, significant impact on the design. And, it's an older building. We just, we haven't looked into that.
Well, I'd like to know, I guess a lot of people would, what is the church going to do to indemnify the city from any litigation for anyone slipping and falling down those stairs? All right, being that it's in the public right of way, whether it's happened in the past or since there's a remain, should it happen in the future? What instrument, I guess that's a question for the attorney, Mrs. Jennifer Carrillo Perez, what's your client prepared to do to protect the city from litigation?
So we've actually done it once before, Mr. Traficante, with your department. Your department drafts and we do a license agreement, and that goes to council. So we are willing to do that on behalf of the church. They certainly do not have the means to do some significant work on the site. We are doing some improvements on the site. The stoop, it's there, has been grandfathered in. I mean, it's been in existence, and so we will work with your department and we will prepare any documents to go to council as it relates to that. We did a church, you and I, on Broadway many moons ago, and we did the license agreement. And so I'm hopeful that that is the same path we can take for this one.
Well, just so you know, you're gonna have to involve the legal department and maybe the board attorney, Mr. Plata, as far as what kind of instrument you use. Something that would have to run with the property, all right, not with the owner, because once it changes hands, we know it's worthless, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm going on stating for the record, it's gonna take more than just a letter or two to the Department of Engineering. You're gonna need to speak with others on this matter. All right.
Okay.
Final decision is not up to engineering, it's a legal issue. All right.
No, agreed. And it comes out of your department. So it's something that gets drafted and goes to council, and council approves it, and it does get recorded. And so we're happy to follow that. We've done it once before, we'll do it again. But to your point, we will work with your department and the law department. I don't want to give Mr. Plata more work. He's the board attorney, not the city attorney on it. So we'll work with those various departments in the city.
All right. And this existing church parking lot, you do show a 15-foot wide buffer. I guess this reverts back to Mr. Scott. Is there any reason why the church can't remove some of those striped islands and put curved landscape islands in their place and distribute landscaping throughout the parking lot? I believe you need at least 4 on-site trees in that church parking lot, 1 for every 5 parking spaces. You're at 21 now, so that's at least 4. Is there any reason why the church cannot replace those striped islands you're showing distributed throughout the church parking lot with curved landscape islands to generate more shade?
Mr. Scott, I don't know if there are any islands on the property at all. The lot itself is paved. Is that correct?
The lot is currently paved. What he's asking for is us to propose some curb islands, so that we could have some shade, in the lot. I mean, there's no reason that we could not do it. I mean, technically we can. I think, personally, I think it's better for us to, have the amount of landscaping that we have in the buffer area. But if it's going to be required by the city, it is something that we can look into. It's just going to be, an additional improvement and added cost to the church.
So I guess, is that something agreeable then? Is that a yes?
I can't answer that question. I can't
Yeah.
speak for the church.
Mr. Traficante, I will check with them during the course of the testimony. I will answer AJ's as well as your question. I just have to confer with their counsel. Again, that pertains to the church's property, not the applicant.
Oh, all right.
I will get back to you today. I mean, during the course of this hearing, I just have to confer with them.
All right, but it's all part of the same application, right?
Understood. It's a different owner and it will be a different, it's a cost to them. So we just have to check with them out of courtesy, obviously.
All right, and to follow on the heels of my predecessor, Mr. Jamali, city ordinance prohibits stormwater runoff from flowing out of a driveway or a parking lot across the public sidewalk. So that's a city ordinance. Never, in addition to whatever water and sewer is looking for, and this probably would fall under their realm, so I'll defer to them, but it's fair to say you're going to need to put something at the end of that existing driveway that runs out to South 12th Street. Collect all the runoff coming off this church parking lot before it flows across the public sidewalk. Is that something else your church client, while you're bringing up the curb landscape islands, they'd be willing to do? And again, take it a step further and consult with the Department of Water and Sewer.
Well, I will say we will do that in conjunction with whatever we need to do to satisfy the Department of Water and Sewer's requirements.
All right. Otherwise, you can satisfy all the lighting requirements for both the new building, all right, the walkways, pedestrian walkways on site, especially one that runs from the playground area to South 11th Street. Give us a minimum of a 1/2 foot candle. You need a minimum of one, not a half, within the church parking lot. All right, not to quibble, but ordinance says 1 to, I think, 5 or 1 to 3 foot candles, minimum 1 outside the radius of any light pole. And you have like 0.3, 0.5, 0.8, 0.4 in that corner, southeast corner. That's why the recommendation for a light pole. But if you can cover that with a new light fixture, off the, replace the existing with the new, to get more of a spread or a throw without throwing it into the rear yards of the adjoining residential lots that are to the east, we're all for that. So is that something agreeable as well?
That is agreeable. As I testified, we would look to first try to maybe exchange, upgrade a fixture so that we can have enough lighting onto the lot. If we find that we cannot do that with upgrading the existing fixtures, then we will propose a new pole-mounted fixture as you have recommended in your letter.
All right, and last of all, I understand, I realize the buffer area is being proposed, but should that not be sufficient? And I will defer to the board planner, something else, whether a fence in conjunction with a landscape buffer area, a solid fence, not the chain link, to prevent the throw from headlights from the church parking lot pulling the rear yards of those 4 or 5 residential lots to the east. Is that something that you could be agreeable to your client and discuss at length with the board planner and whoever else is concerned? I guess maybe the city arborist regarding the trees you're planting and anything else you can do to make it a solid buffer. If you put deciduous trees, they shed leaves. Come winter time, they don't provide as much buffer and as much shade, okay, as they do in the summer, and you will still get headlights shining through that church parking lot when people pull in and pull out, and create a glare or nuisance for the adjoining property owners in those, I think, 4 or 5 residential lots that are off to the east at front South 11th Street. Is that something also agreed?
Yeah, again, I cannot speak for the people of the church, but we will do the best that we can in terms of what we've already shown, what we've already agreed to in terms of the landscape buffering. If a fence is required, I think we would be able to provide the fence, but other than that, I cannot speak on behalf of the church.
Well,
Mr. Trafficante, I could say that we will agree to do the solid fence.
all right, well, again, I defer to the board planner, you know, if
Understood.
be any, they do have a say, and they're gonna wanna see what you put in. Not, a chain link fence with vinyl slats, no, it's gotta be something else. Again, I
Okay.
defer to the board planner on that, but I just wanted to go on the record, bring it to the board's attention, all right? You know, the 8 coniferous trees may not be enough, I don't know. You know, again, that's something for the arborist, and again, like I said, the board plan. Otherwise, pretty much fair to say, Mr. Scott, you can comply with all the other comments in the Department of Engineering's report to the planning board dated June 22nd, 2026.
Yes.
All right, no further questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Trafficante. Ms. Gruhl?
Thank you.
Ms. Gruhl, if you could raise your right hand.
Yes,
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will state the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and state your affiliation for the record.
Susan Gruel, Gruel, Board Consulting Planner. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. I agree with Mr. Trafficante's comment regarding the substitution of the chain link for, and happy to hear that you're willing to do that. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. From what I can gather, there would be an elimination of 4 variances on the existing church lot, including insufficient EV spaces because you're going to comply with that, and the illumination. Essentially, I do have a question. Are you still asking for the insufficient shade trees? I know you have 3 pre-existing, a minimum of 4 are required. Is that something that you're still asking for a variance on?
I believe we are, and I'll defer Mr. Scott because the placement of it would be the problem and lines of sight with the driveway. And so the comment was we would agree to work with the arborist. If we can plant it, great. And if we can't, we'll contribute to the tree fund.
Okay, but at this point, you're asking technically for a variance.
Correct.
Okay. In terms of the new lot, I understand that there would be the elimination of 4 variances associated with the illumination. I just again have a couple of questions to clarify. Insufficient off-street parking spaces, you still would need a variance for that, correct?
Correct.
And insufficient on-site trees, 4 required, 2 are proposed. Is
Correct.
that also a variance? Okay, and then the waivers, the waiver for the new lot, insufficient parking space dimension, 9 feet is required, 8.5 adjacent to a wall. Is that going to be eliminated or?
Yes, that is eliminated. We made
Okay.
that change, and that will be
Okay.
brought up during the architect's testimony.
Okay, I just wanted, I missed that, so insufficient EV space dimension, is that also something?
That variance will also be corrected.
And the excessive driveway width? 20 is permitted and you're asking for 22.
Yes, I mean, we could bring it down to 20. We're doing it based upon the drive aisle interior to the site. But if the board's professionals will require 20, we can narrow it down to 20. That's not a
Well, the ordinance says maximum width is 20. So I'm just trying to clarify what you're proposing and what the waivers and the variances are.
We will make the adjustment to bring it down to 20.
Okay, so that's great. Thank you very much. Those were my questions. At this point, the other variances that we highlighted, relate to transparency and signage, and I believe that is the architect's testimony that will occur.
Correct. He was also going to touch upon the parking stall size in the building.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Sorry
That's why
about
you didn't
that.
hear it. No, that's why you didn't hear it. It's
Jumped
okay.
the gun. Thank you very much. Thank you,
course.
Madam Chair. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Gruhl. So your next professional is?
Sure. I don't know if you, let me see. Thank you, Mr. Scott. When we'll send over those exhibits, our next professional is our traffic, Andrew.
Mr. Vicio?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and state your affiliation for the record.
Andrew Vicio, V as in Victor, ISCHIO. I'm a traffic engineer with Stonefield Engineering and Design located in Rutherford, New Jersey.
Counsel, may qualify your witness.
Sure. If you can, please provide the board the benefit of your educational background, please.
Certainly. I have had the pleasure of being accepted before this board previously. I received my bachelor's and master's degrees both in civil engineering from Georgia Tech. I'm a licensed professional engineer. My license is active and in good standing.
Wonderful. I'd like to submit.
Yes, you're accepted by the board, Mr. Vicio.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you can, your office did prepare the traffic and parking assessment report that was dated June 18th in connection with this application, correct?
That is correct.
And then if you can you please provide an overview with respect to initially the existing conditions and then the methodology and the findings from your report?
Certainly. With respect to existing conditions, the site is located along 11th and 12th Street between Woodland Avenue and Springfield Avenue. Our traffic report contains both a trip generation analysis of the proposed development, and we also conducted extensive on-street parking counts to understand the parking dynamics in this neighborhood. To refresh everyone's memory, the proposed development includes 43 income restricted units. Access is proposed via driveways along both 11th Street and 12th Street. We looked, as is typical and the industry standard, we looked to the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual to understand the traffic generation potential of the subject development. Based on the scale of this development, we are calculating that at most one vehicle is expected to leave the site every 5 to 6 minutes in the weekday morning peak hour. And at most, one vehicle is expected to enter the site every 5 to 6 minutes in the weekday evening peak hour when people are returning to work and errands and what have you. Again, there are driveways along both frontages, so the traffic entering and exiting the site would be dispersed. And any potential impact that the site could have on any one intersection would be reduced even further. And the last point on the trip generation is that the engineering review letter that we received from the city also concurred that the site is not expected to change the level of service within the immediate area. The second significant topic that we addressed in our report pertains to the adequacy of the proposed parking supply. The site provides 24 physical parking spaces for the 43 units. That is a ratio of approximately 0.6 stalls per unit. The proposed parking supply is sufficient for the scale of development, and the site is expected to be self-sufficient with respect to parking. I based that on data from the Southside View affordable housing development, which is located also along 11th Street, just a short walk, about 2 minutes from the subject property. That property contains 40 units and 25 parking spaces. All of the parking spaces at the Southside View development have not been assigned, actually. Specifically, only 23 parking spaces have been assigned, which happens to be a ratio of approximately 0.6 vehicles per unit, which is the exact same as the proposed development. Also of note is that the applicant team is also working on a second affordable housing development in the neighborhood located at 569 Springfield Avenue. Again, about a 2-minute walk from the subject property. That development is under construction, but it will provide 31 physical parking spaces for 63 units, which equals a parking supply of approximately 0.5 parking spaces per unit, which happens to be fewer than the proposed parking supply of the subject application, which is again approximately 0.6 parking spaces per unit. So in summary, the proposed parking supply is both equal to the parking demand at the occupied comparable site, and the proposed parking supply ratio is in fact greater than the parking supply ratio at the comparable site in the neighborhood that is still under construction. That concludes my direct testimony, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
All right. Well, Mr. Traficante beat us to the punch. Come on, Mr. Traficante.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Mr. Vicio, do you have a copy of the Department of Engineering's review memorandum of the traffic and parking assessment letter?
Yes.
Ours is, okay. On the second page, I believe it's the 1, 2, 3, 4. Fifth bullet point. Applicant shall revise their traffic and parking assessment report to include a more extensive parking demand versus supply survey that identifies all available parking spaces within a 300-foot radius of the subject site. That also discounts any existing on-street parking spaces that are dedicated to be for handicap accessible parking only. The revised parking demand versus supply survey shall need to measure the number of available vacant parking spaces within a 300-foot radius of the subject site over a 3-hour period from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. and over a 5-hour period from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. on a weekday, with measurements taken on average every 15 minutes in order to accurately determine an accurate hourly turnover rate of available on-street parking spaces within 300 feet of the subject site. Correct me, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Vicio, you took isolated counts at 10 a.m. on 2 weekdays, and I think on a Saturday and a Sunday, and then you came back at 10 p.m. pretty much almost on the same days. Why did you just do an isolated count at 10 a.m. and at 10 p.m.? Why wasn't the count spread out over a 3 or 4 5-hour period like we like to see, so we get an accurate representation of the hourly turnover rate? Correct me if I'm wrong, these were isolated counts, were they not?
That is correct. We chose the hours, specifically the critical peak hour for parking demand in residential areas is overnight. So the counts that we conducted 8 separate parking observations. Within that were also 2 occasions of parking counts at the 10 p.m. hour. That hour was chosen because the Institute of Transportation Engineers indicates that residential peak demand is at approximately 97% of the maximum demand at the 10 p.m. hour. So we selected that time in accordance with industry standards.
Well, let me ask you this then. If instead of at 10 p.m., if you did a count at 11 p.m., wouldn't it be more representative of the actual number of spaces being used on the street overnight? People could still be considered either at work or at school, all right, food shopping, visiting friends and family at 10 p.m. at night. Is it reasonable to say or, anticipate that you would get a more accurate count at 11 p.m. because by that time, pretty much everyone's home for the night from work, from school, from whatever they need or want to do. Is that reasonable?
So the hour that we collected is 97% of the peak demand. So adjusting upward to 100% would reduce the available parking spaces that we counted and documented in the report by 1 vehicle.
No, that's all. and then the count you did at 10 a.m. in the morning, especially on a weekday, isn't it reasonable? By 10 a.m., everyone's already at work or at school, all right? If you came out at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m., you know, before people leave to go to school or go to work, you would find a lot less parking spaces on the street, would you not?
I agree. That's the purpose of the 10 p.m. counts.
All right, but still, 10 a.m. is pretty much after the fact. By that point in the day, pretty much everyone's already left for work, at which time it's sort of one-sided. You will find a lot more parking spaces on the street at 10 a.m. than you would at 7 a.m. Is that reasonable?
The purpose of the study is to evaluate typical parking conditions, not to document every possible hour of the week. So based on the data that we collected and the data from the nearby comparable site, I remain comfortable with the conclusion that the proposed parking supply is sufficient.
All right, but again, if these counts were done over at least a 3 to 4, maybe 5 hour period at night, you would get a spread, especially if you went around every 15 minutes, half hour at most, to determine how many spaces become available and how many spaces get filled over that 3 or 4 hour period, as opposed to an isolated count again at 10 a.m. in the morning. Is that fair to say?
I'm comfortable with our collecting the counts at a time when the parking demand is at 97% of the peak demand.
Right. Well, that still doesn't. All right. Well, again, this is a bit one-sided, Mr. Vecchio. It favors your client, then gives a true representation of the available parking spaces in the street, especially in a weekday morning. 10 a.m. is too late. It's after the fact. All right. It doesn't really give a true representation of all the spaces being occupied. And when you say utilization in your report, could you clarify what you mean by utilization? When you say it's it's on the third page of our review memo. Okay, it's in, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Ninth bullet point. Applicant shall clarify as to the total parking supply of 231 spaces within the site vicinity, as noted under the second paragraph found at page 4 of 6 of their traffic and parking assessment report. How many of these 231 parking spaces are within 300 feet radius of the subject site lot and can be found within a public street? Applicant shall also clarify as to what is meant by percent utilization. Is this the percentage of total available parking spaces that fall within the 300 feet of the subject site and that are actually being used, occupied at the time the parking count was done? Could you clarify, Mr. Vecchio?
So utilization is demand divided by supply. Our parking study actually was more comprehensive than just the 300-foot search from the property. We counted on-street parking spaces within an approximately 5-minute walk of the site. And that was to allow us to understand typical parking conditions and conduct observations over a range of conditions.
Well, is it fair to say a 5-minute walk will find more available parking spaces than a 300-foot radius from the subject site?
Certainly. However, again, I'm confident that the subject property would be self-sufficient when it comes to parking, and that's based on real-world data at a development that's an approximately 2-minute walk from the site.
Would your client be willing to update their parking study to do it over a 3 or 4 hour period? You know, rather than an isolated count at 10 a.m. in the morning, from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. in the morning on a weekday, 2 weekdays, from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. on a weeknight, 2 weeknights, and also on a Saturday or a Sunday, usually from 9 to 5 on a Saturday and 9 to 3 on a Sunday. Is that something you'd be willing to do?
It's my opinion, my professional opinion, I should say, that we followed an accepted methodology for conducting parking counts. That methodology is both reasonable and proportional to the subject development. I can't personally commit to additional efforts, and I'll have to defer to counsel on the decision, but additional data would not change my findings.
Mr. Trafficante, we're happy to do the supplemental report and get it to you, and hopefully it'll confirm with the testimony. He just indicated that it really won't change the findings, but we will do that.
Right. All right. All right, I guess at this point, no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trafficante. Members of the board, commissioners, do any of you have questions for Mr. Vecchio? All right, seeing none. Your next professional is?
Our architect, I don't see him, Matt. Oh, Bart, there you go. Thank you. Sorry, you moved in my little box area.
Mr. Bardner, if you can raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and state your affiliation for the record.
Sure, it's Matthew Bartner. Last name is Bartner. I'm an architect and managing principal with Thriven Design, located in Collingswood, New Jersey. I've been a practicing architect for 30 years. I went to Pennsylvania State University and graduated in 1996.
Mr. Bartner, your license is current and in good standing,
Yes,
and you've been accepted as an expert before this board or the zoning board of adjustment in the city?
I've been accepted as an expert among other boards in the state, not in Newark.
Okay. And in the field of architecture, correct?
Correct.
I'd like to submit Mr. Bartner
All
as an
right,
expert for architecture.
Mr. Bartner is accepted by the board.
Thank you.
Mr. Bartner, your office prepared the plans that were submitted as well as the supplemental plans that were submitted as part of this application. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you're familiar with the property and have met with the client and prepared those plans with this input, correct?
Correct.
All right. If you can, please provide an overview with respect to the proposed new building, because that is the scope of the work that's been done, correct, from your office?
Yes.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure everyone has seen my screen with a floor plan on it.
You can, yes.
Okay, great. So thank you, members of the board, for having me here to talk about the project. I will try to not repeat the testimony from other professionals as we're getting into the second hour of the hearing tonight. The building, as we've discussed, is located on the South 12th and South 11th Street, 600 block of those streets. My plans that we're showing here today are rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise from what we saw in the civil plans. So 12th Street is on the left-hand side, 11th Street is on the right-hand side, and north is upward on the site. The building itself, we've talked about the number of apartments, and I'll get into that further as I walk through the plans. To begin on the ground floor, however, on the 12th Street side of the building, we have our main entrance to the apartment building, which includes a vestibule and a lobby with space for residents to gather and congregate, as well as wait for a ride or somebody that they'll be meeting. We also, on the street side, have the entrance to the parking garage that we've discussed previously. And then moving south from there, there is a trash compactor and a recycling collection room. Trash receptacles will be stored inside this building and then pulled out through double doors by the trash truck provider when they're ready to pick them up. And then finally, at the southern corner of the 12th Street side, we have a bike parking room, bike storage room that has 13 individual spaces, each sized per the requirements of the ordinance, 2 foot by 6 foot, 7 foot high, to provide bicycle parking for those residents that use that in lieu of cars. Moving back to the north side of 12th Street, in addition to the lobby that faces out onto 12th, we have a package storage room for packages for residents. We have our postal service mailboxes for residents. On the northwest corner here, we have a fitness room with fitness equipment for residents. And as we move further into this area, there is an on-site management office and maintenance suite for the property, 2 elevators traveling through all 5 floors of the building, and one of the 2 stairs with an access directly off of the lobby. In the parking garage itself, we'll have our 24 physical spaces. Those will all be revised as needed to comply with the ordinance requirements in terms of size. We discussed previously the driveway width. Inside of the building, we were showing that 22-foot width as well as the 22 on the outside. I'm not sure if the driveway comments refer only to the outside driveway width or also the driveway within the parking garage, something we can discuss later this evening. Certainly for resident benefit, we would prefer the wider drive aisle inside of the parking garage if we could have that, just so that people have more maneuvering space for cars. But if 20 foot is what is required, then, we will comply with that. Then on the southeast end of the site, we have an area that's dedicated to utility space. So we have space for electrical service, for water service, for fire service to the building. The building is completely sprinkled with an NFPA 13 sprinkler protection system, as well as an emergency generator to provide emergency power in the building in the case of a power outage. So that's all to maintain, obviously, health and safety for residents and comply with life safety requirements. As discussed previously, in the corner here, outside of the building, adjacent to the church, there's an area for a playground space. This is something we implemented on the Southside View project that we referenced earlier that's located down the street and provides a nice, safe, enclosed area for children that live in the building to have a place to play. Parents can watch them either from within their apartments if they happen to be facing that direction, or they can come down and still be close to home as they play there. All parts of the building are a minimum of 5 feet off of the property lines. I think there was a variance noted for a lesser setback, which I think was just a tough to read situation on one of the plans where the sidewalk is 4 feet, but the setback of the building is 5 feet. And I should have said earlier, the plans I'm referencing here are our June 5th, 2026 plans that have already been submitted to the board previously.
So Matt, just for I'm sorry, Mr. Barner, for clarification, that basically is identifying that one of the variances, it's not a variance in and of itself. Can you just clarify that again? Because we're keeping a list.
There's a list of variances that was on page 22 of one of the reports. And this would be number 15, insufficient southern side yard setbacks.
Wonderful. Thank you.
The building itself, we are set back on 12th Street and 11th Street, set back from the property lines approximately 5 feet. In both cases, we were trying to both give a little bit of room to the public realm that's outside of the building, since this is a taller building than some of the other adjacent properties. We also try to align, particularly on 11th Street, where the fabric is more intact across the street or along the streetscape, align with the mass of those buildings, although they each do have some porches that project closer to the property line, and that sets the official required setback. We kept the mass of our building aligned with the mass of those adjacent buildings to maintain the streetscape image that's desired. All right, I will move to the upper floors of the building. So on the upper floors of the, there we go. On the upper floors of the building, primarily this is focused on the apartments for the residents. So on the second floor, we have 10 apartments, and then on the upper floors, 3 through 5, we have 11 apartments. The difference in that one apartment on the second floor is in this area here, adjacent to the stairs. We have a large community room for use of residents. That includes a kitchenette within it, an area for computer use by residents and children in the community room, 2 bathrooms to serve the users of the community room. And on the north side of that community room, on top of the roof of the management area, there is a roof deck outdoor space for residents. As we'll see in some of the elevations of the building shortly, we're focused a lot with this building on creating softer green edges to the building and the spaces. One of those is at the roof deck, which allows us to screen the deck from the adjacent properties so that there's no disturbance between users of the roof deck and people that might live directly next door. On these upper floors, the two elevators that we mentioned previously from the lobby, as well as the stair, come up to an elevator lobby with a small sitting area. Then we have a number of apartments around the whole perimeter of the floor. Across from the elevator lobby area is a trash room, which has trash chutes for recycling and for trash so that those can be collected down in that compactor room, the first floor that I mentioned earlier. And then on the other end of the building towards 11th Street, we have our second stair, which would be an exit only stair to the outside. So people can enter that from each of the upper floors, go downstairs either for convenience or an emergency, and they'll be able to exit to a walkway that leads to 11th Street, but there'll be no entry point back into the building in that area to maintain security. And then at the bend in the L shape of this building, there's a small area on each floor that allows us to provide a little bit of program and amenity space outside of the apartments for residents. So some of the thinking that we've had on the use of that, it could be like a reading nook area for parents and children to sit and read. It could be a gaming area for teenagers or grown-ups for that matter. And other uses like that. We have one of those on each floor to create four locations for that. For the apartments themselves, they typically have an open plan kitchen and living room area with a full-size kitchen, full-size appliances. The 1 and 2 bedroom apartments have one full bathroom. The 3 bedroom apartments have one full bathroom and a powder room. Each bedroom is provided with its own individual closet. The apartments themselves have a laundry room with washer and dryer in each unit. We have individual high efficiency heating and cooling systems, high efficiency water heaters for each apartment, as well as a coat closet, a pantry closet, and linen storage in each unit. And I don't know if anybody else testified to it, so I will make sure to mention that our mix of apartments in the project, there are 43 total. We have 11 3-bedrooms, 28 2-bedrooms, and 4 1-bedroom apartments.
Matt, can you provide an overview of like the square footage for the 1s, the 2s, and the 3s, the ranges, please?
Sure. So the 1-bedrooms average about 837 square feet. The 2 bedrooms range from about 900 to 1,040 square feet. And then the 3 bedrooms are 1,188.
Thank you.
And all of those units comply with requirements from the funding agencies for the tax credits and the other funding that will go into this project.
All right, so just for the record, it's obviously conforms with the city ordinances, and what Mr. Barton is referring to is the NJHMFA financing that the applicant is pursuing as it relates to the building. Again, to be clear, 4502 is where this development, this new building is proposed, this multifamily project that will be owned by New Eden Faith Partners LLC, and 45.01 will remain under the ownership of the church and the church only. And so the church, again, is a partner on 4502, but they are in a developer partnership for this project. So just wanted to be clear on that. If you can just proceed now on that. I think just if we can go into building materials and signage, yes.
Absolutely. All right, so this is the view of the project from South 12th Street, looking at the lobby space, which is here on the first floor, the parking garage and some of the service spaces we talked about earlier to the right at the bottom, and then apartments up above. Not to spend too much time on this, but with the design of this, we wanted to create something that was in scale and of a type with other kind of new development that's happening throughout the city and in the South Ward. I talked earlier about some of the setbacks aligning with adjacent properties where we could. The building itself is a mixture of brick, red brown brick at the base, obviously a very common material in Newark, as well as fiber cement panels up above on the upper floors. The sort of light areas of fiber cement actually have a variation in the tones of grays and browns to give that a little bit of variety. And then there are these pops of yellow-orange color, which we like to think about as echoing some of the fall foliage that you get in the region, excuse me, again, tying into this theme of greening and softening. So you can also see here, obviously, a lot of green shown, both on the ground as well as on the building itself. This green here at sort of the second floor level above the lobby, that's part of that screen that we talked about that would screen the outdoor roof deck from the adjacent property to the north. Windows, we've tried to provide windows of a good size and substantial dimensions so that the spaces feel light and airy, but also provide good energy efficiency and privacy as we are, close to other buildings and properties around the site, and not create a feeling that anybody in these apartments is in a fishbowl being looked at from the outside.
And Mr. Partner, you indicated this is a perspective from the 12th Street, and just discussing the building transparency. There are variances that are being requested. A primary front facade on South 12th Street, 35% is required, and what is being proposed based on your plans is approximately 18.7%. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you had just indicated the rationale for doing that?
Yeah, so when we looked at the transparency requirements, obviously before submitting, we needed to balance a certain amount of the wall space in any given chunk of the wall or any apartment is given over to structure at the top. It's given over to structure in the walls horizontally. Typically, we will not bring windows down to the floor in these type of apartments just because it makes it difficult to furnish. And then we look at how much window can we provide in each space that's appropriate for furnishability of the space, whether that's a bedroom or a living room, as well as the balance between energy efficiency, because windows are less efficient than wall in these types of projects. So we want to make sure that we're giving residents, a good, sustainable, maintainable type of building. At the 35% transparency in the ordinance for this type of a project, it's very difficult to achieve that without making significant compromises in those other areas.
And that relates to the primary front facade we just discussed on South 12th. There are additional variances that are being requested as it relates to the transparency. And so as you go through the presentation for the next one, I'll ask the same questions.
Okay. And I should add on the ground floor at the lobby, we tried to make a much more open and transparent area there where it can sustain that kind of a look, because it's not somebody's individual apartment. The costs for those utilities are on the landlord, and the spaces beyond are more amenable to having that kind of exposure. So we expanded that where we could. Similarly with the elevator lobby that you can see here on the upper floors in this corner, there's more glass there than in the more private areas of the apartments.
Okay.
On the 11th Street side of the building, so this is looking sort of northward on 11th Street, a lot of the same vocabulary that we talked about in the 12th Street side in terms of materials, windows, rationale for the colors. We wanted the building to be a good neighbor to both streets, even though this is a secondary facade. So there is a pedestrian entry here into the garage or an exit from the garage. Again, we've decorated that with different materials, lighting accents, some of that green material that we talked about on the walls, so that it doesn't look like the back of the building. It really is still part of the streetscape and contributes. Prominently, I'm sure it's very visible and obvious here, there's a large mural that is planned here for the corner at the southeast of the building. We wanted to locate it there because it's very visible and prominent, whether you're walking or driving northward up 11th Street, it'll be a very visible site. As we noted in the plans, the imagery depicted here is just sort of a representation. It's not really intended to be the final imagery, but the focus, as we've talked about with the client, is to focus on Newark civil rights leaders and history of those leaders, and we'll build on a theme for that. On the long sides of the building, which are, what face the other lots on the north side and the south side. I apologize, this will just need a minute to queue up. Again, it's a similar mix of materials with brick at the base, the ground floor, fiber cement panels, the dark windows at the upper floors, a mix of some whites and tans, blue, and a darker gray. The garage itself, I should have mentioned, the garage has many openings all around the perimeter of the garage where we have exterior wall. Those openings will be filled with a screen material to make sure that the garage is secured from the exterior, but those allow light and air into the garage and don't make it feel like it's kind of an enclosed cave type of garage. It's much more open. So this is on the top here, this is the north elevation, north side of the site that would be facing, the roof deck is right here, kind of in the center at the second floor. And then on the south elevation, and pardon me, it takes a second to load. Here we go. Again, you can see all these openings for the garage to provide light and air into the garage. And then the upper floors with the apartments as well. As far as some of the other features, and this addresses some of the items in the review letters as well, these buildings, by virtue of being funded by low-income housing tax credits, they'll comply with Energy Star requirements, will comply with the Enterprise Green Communities criteria program as well. The roof will have a high SRI. Plumbing fixtures will all have low flow and use less water than typical code minimums. The building will be built with recycled materials. We'll also be recycling construction waste during construction to reduce landfill. All the materials used in the building will address indoor environmental qualities, so they'll have low emittance of volatile organic compounds, VOCs, and contribute to good air quality for people with conditions like asthma so that they can live more healthfully in the building.
And Mr. Bartner, you've had the opportunity to review the reports both from the engineer and the planner, correct?
Yes.
And as it relates to those items that are related to your expertise, architecture, is there anything that would prohibit you from being able to do the modifications or the recommendations they're suggesting?
I'm looking here just to double check. No, there's not.
All right. And just to clarify, the variances that are being sought as it relates to transparency will remain, correct?
Yes, as we proposed here.
And then there was an additional variance as it relates to the signage at the initial application proposed. We did have, because there's 2 street frontages, there were 3 signs that were being proposed, and the ordinance only permits 1, correct?
Yes, on South 12th Street, the image we're seeing here, we have 3 individual signs, one that says New Eden vertically, one that had New Eden horizontally, and then the street number here is 686.
And based on the review letters, are there any modifications that are being made to the signage that's being proposed?
Yes, we'd like to propose removing the larger sign here that runs vertically and maintaining signage above the entry and signage to the side of the entry. So reducing from 3 on this side or this frontage to 2 signs on this frontage.
Okay, so just to recap, instead of 3, we're proposing 2, and the side signs, and then the actual the area of the signage, you're agreeing to reduce it to comply with the ordinance. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So that we'd be removing that 1 variance as it relates to the excessive signage area, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Just for clarity, I apologize. Okay. I have no additional questions. Thank you.
All right. If you can relinquish the screen.
Oh, absolutely. Give me 1 second. Oh, good.
All right. Are there any questions from professionals or commissioners for this witness?
No question. I think it's a nice project in that area there, Dan.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Purdy. All right. Does that complete? No, Matt Flynn is the next professional?
Correct. My last witness is Mr. Flynn.
I'm still here. I can't see myself. But, oh, there we go.
Mr. Flynn, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name, state your affiliation for the record.
Yeah, Matt Flynn, professional planner.
You're accepted by the board.
I was just gonna, his license is still current from a few hours, an hour ago. Thank you. Mr. Flynn, you've had an opportunity to review the plans and the property, correct?
Yes.
And you have heard the testimony that was presented this evening, noting the revisions that are being proposed, correct?
Yes.
All right. Given your understanding of the relief that's being sought, that being of the subdivision, the site plan, and the variance, can you provide an overview as a professional planner on the justification for the subdivision, site plan, and then the variance relief? We can go through that once you get to that point, just to confirm the variances that remain.
Yeah. So basically, from a planning perspective, this is an exciting application since we are actually talking about two inherently beneficial uses. Being the church, which we are proposing to retain, and the other being a 100% affordable multifamily building. So we're keeping one inherently beneficial use, and we're introducing another. So right off the bat, I would say that technically the positive criteria is inherently met by virtue of the fact that we are proposing these two inherently beneficial uses, but I'll put everything on the record anyway. Before turning to the statutory criteria and the relief that we're seeking, as this board knows, every application stands on its own merits. Just because something is a variance doesn't automatically mean that it's inappropriate. We believe that in light of the practical realities of this specific property and the specific development that we're proposing, this is something that's extremely thoughtful and appropriate for this specific property. So with all that being said, just by way of quick background, to remind the board, we are talking about a through lot property that has frontage on two roadways, one being South 12th and the other being South 11th. We are proposing a permitted use in the zone, in the C1 zone. We heard about the subdivision from our prior witnesses. The board has been walked through the overall massing, the circulation, and how the project is going to function effectively. And we heard about the fact that we've reduced the number of variances pretty substantially at this point. So just to sort of rattle off what we're left with here, just in terms of the multifamily property, we are proposing a excessive front setback. So in this case, it's not that we are too close to the front property line, it's that we are actually too far away from it. From both South 12th as well as South 11th, the reason that requirement exists is because we are required to look at the prevailing setback of some of the surrounding properties. But we do feel that this development is sort of going to stand out in the context of everything else that is happening around us. So we do feel that it doesn't necessarily make sense to bring this building that is 5 stories all the way up to the property line. Okay, coverage, we are proposing both building and impervious coverage variances. Building is about 5.5% over the allowance. Impervious is about 4.5% over the allowance. We heard about parking from the prior witness. Number of signs, we are down from 3 down to 2, but that is still a variance. That's my understanding, since we are permitted to have 1. But again, this is a through lot with frontage on 2 roadways. And so for that reason, I think the 2 signs make sense. We heard about the on-site trees. We heard about building transparency, and we also heard about driveway width. And I'm pretty sure that that's all the variances that we need at this point. So from the planning end, what I do is I look at the site itself, I look at the surrounding context, and try to tie all of this relief into the statutory criteria. In this case, I think we can look to the C2 test. The benefits of the application as a whole substantially outweigh any detriments. As I said, these are two inherently beneficial uses, so purpose A, I think, is certainly met here, promotion of the general welfare. As I said, this is a 100% affordable housing project, so all 43 units that are proposed are going to be income restricted. Purpose G is variety of uses in appropriate locations. Again, this is a permitted use in the zone. As the board knows, Newark's zoning ordinance sort of categorizes land uses based on their height. So we are a low-rise multifamily building at 5 stories. The height and the use are compliant here. Purpose I is desirable aesthetics. I think what we saw, again, I'll use the word, it's a highly thoughtful plan. The architecture that we just saw was highly aesthetic. There's a lot of architectural variety. It's not going to stand out as one big bland box. We do think that a lot of thought has gone into that to make sure that it is something that is going to contribute substantially to the streetscape. And purpose M is efficient land use. This is infill development, in my opinion. We are keeping that church that's on the property today and utilizing the remainder of the property, again, for something that is extremely beneficial to the community at large. So the flip side to that would be the negative criteria, no substantial detriment to the public or to the zone. Again, just because something's a variance doesn't mean that it is automatically detrimental. That's the purpose of this board, to weigh the pros and the cons here. In terms of the negatives, in terms of zone conformance, we are looking at an oversized property. 21,000 square feet is proposed, whereas 5,000 square feet is the minimum allowed. Lot width complies. I guess the big one here is density. We are proposing 490 square feet per unit. We only need 375 square feet per unit. So as we just saw from our architectural plans, these are highly comfortable, spacious units with some amenities. We feel that this is a living environment that will be conducive to healthy living. As I said, building height complies as well as number of stories. So again, when you look at this property from the street, you're not seeing something that is larger than what is anticipated in this zone. So really, in terms of the relief that we are requesting, primarily the coverage and the setbacks. Again, the front setbacks, I think that this is a property that is sort of distinguished from some of the other buildings that we have here. We are permitted use, but again, it might not make total sense to require this building to be right up to those other buildings, which are a little bit smaller. In terms of coverage, again, 5.5% over the building coverage and 4.5% over the impervious coverage. Really, again, the board's job is to look at the overall project benefits and to weigh that against these somewhat de minimis deviations in terms of coverage. I would say this is a vastly beneficial project, and that relief certainly does not rise to the level of substantial, nor does it outweigh these benefits that we are proposing. Importantly, we are compliant with side setbacks, and in terms of light, air, and open space, our front setbacks, again, are excessive, not deficient. In terms of parking, we heard testimony regarding the parking and the adequacy in relation to the actual demand. Building transparency, again, I'll rely on the renderings that we just saw from the architect. This is not going to stand out as something that is bland. And then driveway width, we felt that was reasonable for safety. I think we've all been in parking garages where we feel like we're a little bit cramped and dealing with something that's tight. So we are requesting 2 additional feet in terms of width, but we feel that is to the benefit of the residents. So all said, I think the benefits substantially outweigh any potential detriments, and this is a substantially beneficial project that I feel is appropriate.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. And just to clarify, we're talking about the driveway within the garage, but we've agreed to the 20-foot as testified by on the record by Mr. Scott from Ms. School, correct?
That's right.
All right, okay. I want to make sure we're all on the same page. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, do any of you have questions for Mr. Lynn? Professionals, no? All right, so at this time, what we want to do is to invite the public, members of the public, if you have questions with regards to this application, please raise your digital hand at this point, or dial in at *9.
Seeing two, Madam Chair, I'm promoting Arthur Taylor.
Good evening, Mr. Taylor. If you could please turn your camera on and unmute, you'll be sworn by our attorney.
He's declining to be promoted, so
I see him at the bottom of the screen.
there we go.
Mr. Taylor, if you could please unmute and or turn your camera on, we'll allow you 3 minutes after you're sworn. All right, let's attempt with the second person whose hand is raised.
Promoting Christine Taylor. She has also declined to be promoted.
All right.
So seeing none, Madam Chair.
All right, so thank you. At this time, we need a motion.
I move to accept the application.
I second
Chair.
First of all, y'all were too fast. I didn't.
Second,
Chair.
Commissioner Roundtree.
Let's go.
Commissioner Roundtree, you seconded, but who was the first person that?
I did.
Who is I?
Alana.
it. Second.
Okay, so that's my vice chair, Alana Miles. All right, presented the motion. What Brother Purdy said he seconded before.
I did say that.
Okay, listen.
It's all right. It's good. It's good.
You good? You gonna relinquish it?
It's all right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Present.
Go ahead, that one.
Okay. Listen, y'all
Chair.
can Russell. All right. Motion presented by Vice Chair Miles and seconded by Councilwoman Roundtree. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Commissioner Austin,
Yes.
Commissioner Purdy,
Yes.
Commissioner James.
Yes.
Commissioner Scott Roundtree,
Yes.
Commissioner De Silva,
Yes.
Commissioner Spate,
Yes.
Commissioner Miles,
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Yes, your application has been approved. Thank you. And we look forward to that project coming to fruition.
Thank you. We will send over the paperwork represented to the board secretary.
Thank you so very much.
I will excuse myself now, Mr. Potter. We'll talk later. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, you'll talk later. All right. So at this time, there are 2 resolutions. Is that what this is I'm looking at? For adoption, and then we're gonna do something a little different. Mr. Plotter, if you want to present both of the resolutions.
I don't believe they're resolutions.
So, Oh, wait a minute. This is
Area in need of redevelopment.
not areas in need of, right, improvement. Pardon me, not reading. So who's presenting them?
Madam Chair, I am. I believe as long as, and Mr. Plotter will confirm that the notice was given for the hearings in front of this board for this evening. There are two redevelopment studies. And I guess that's the first question, and then I will briefly testify on these.
Yes, the board secretary has confirmed that this was published in the Star Ledger, and notice was proper.
Okay.
All right. So the first is number 3 on the agenda, 7R2-E, as adopted on March 4th, 2026. So, Ms. Gruhl.
Okay, is that Emmett Street?
That's Emmett Street.
Okay, Brooke, are you able to pull up the aerial for that?
Yeah.
And Mr. Plata, I guess I have to be sworn.
Yes. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will state the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Say your name, spell your last name, your affiliation for the record.
GRUEL, planning consultant to the planning board. As the council, as city council requested, the planning board and we prepared a area in need of redevelopment report for 153, 155 Emmett Street, block 1180, lot 17. Our report is dated March 23rd, 2026. The resolution that this board and we relied on, was for studying an area as a non-condemnation redevelopment area. And in our report, we have this aerial that identifies the lot that was being studied. I will briefly go through our conclusions and why we believe the lot and the study area meet one or both of the criteria for designation. The area is in the mixed use area, and it is a lot that is, you can look here, please bear with me. I have the wrong one out. It is a lot that that in our opinion meets the criteria. It's currently an unstriped concrete surface parking lot used for commercial vehicle storage and parking. It's there's a chain link fence and rolling gate that provides access to the site. In terms of the evaluation of the study area, we evaluated the study area and that lot and determined that it actually meets 2 of the criteria to designate. Number 1 is criterion D. And basically what that says, it is due to dilapidation, faulty arrangement or design, obsolescence, and excessive land coverage. A standalone surface parking lot is obsolete. It is not something that is encouraged. at all within the zoning and within the master plan for the city. It has signs of dilapidation, cracked concrete pavement, and it lacks striping, and it does not comply with modern land use planning standards, which would be integrated into the neighborhood. Excessive land coverage, 100%. And as I said, it does not comply with the master plan or the zoning in terms of what the intent and the vision of the area is. The master plan specifically, the master plan 2022 master plan does not recommend standalone surface parking lots. That in itself is a detriment to the public welfare. And so as a result, that in itself, the dilapidation, faulty design, obsolescence, and excessive land coverage are detrimental to the community welfare, and in our opinion, can be designated under criterion D. In addition to that, criterion H, which is promoting smart growth principles, are also met. The city is designated as an urban center. It's a smart growth area, according to the Office of Planning Advocacy. All the maps indicate that this is a prime location, and the city, in terms of aligning with smart growth principles, and it also complies and is consistent with the Newark 2022 master plan. So in conclusion, it's our opinion that this site can be designated under both criterion D and criterion H as an area in need of redevelopment, non-condemnation. That is the extent of my testimony. Does the board have any questions?
Commissioners, do any of you have any questions?
What's the address again?
It's 153 to 155 Emmett Street.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
any city-owned lots in that particular zone?
That site is not city-owned.
Got you. Okay, it's private.
It's privately owned.
Thank you, Commissioner James. Any other questions, commissioners? Ms. Gruhl or Brooke, if you could please relinquish the screen. Thank you. If there are members of the public that have questions with regards to this application, please raise your hand at this time.
Seeing none, Madam Chair.
All right, so at this time, we need a motion with regards to this area in need of redevelopment, non-condemnation site.
Madam Chair, so move.
All right, moved by Commissioner James,
Second,
seconded by Commissioner Roundtree.
unless Commissioner Purdy.
Roll
I love
call.
you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Commissioner Austin,
Yes.
Commissioner Purdy,
Yes.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott Roundtree. Commissioner Scott Roundtree? Oh, we can hear you. You're on mute.
Stand on mute. We could read your lips, though.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Commissioner De Silva,
Yes.
Commissioner Spate,
Stepped away.
Commissioner Miles,
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Yes, all right, so that application has been approved, and the next is 7R2-I, the address is 48 through 50 Jefferson Street.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I can summarize our report and study for that as well. And Mr. Plata, would you like, if that's okay, Madam Chair?
you're accepted by the board.
And I have to be sworn in, correct?
Yes. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will state the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. Please state your names.
Susan Gruel, Gruel, consulting planner to the board. Based upon a resolution from the city council, the planning board was requested to investigate whether 4850 Jefferson Street complied with the statutory criteria to designate it as an area in need of redevelopment, non-condemnation, and we prepared a report dated March 2nd, 2026, regarding that. Again, I will summarize right now. That site is vacant. It used to contain a barber shop and a residential dwelling, but the buildings were demolished within the past 3 years, I guess. It's currently, the zoning is R4, residential low-rise multifamily zone. And in evaluating site visit, aerial photos, looking at the property records and the master plan, we determined that there is substantial evidence to suggest that this qualifies under criterion H, which permits an area to be designated that is consistent with smart growth planning principles. Again, as the other application was also consistent with H. Newark, as the city, is an urban center. It also is a smart growth area by many of the state planning maps, and is also consistent with the 2022 master plan for the city. And within the master plan, it discusses the potential of redeveloping vacant, empty parcels throughout its objectives. And a vacant lot is not consistent with what the vision is of the master plan, nor is it consistent with smart growth planning principles within the state designated plans. So as a result, in our opinion, this does meet H and can be designated as a redevelopment area, non-condemnation, under that criterion. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's the end of my testimony.
All right. Commissioners, do any of you have any questions with regards to this application? All right. Brooke, if you could please give us the screen back. Thank you. Any questions from members of the public with regards to this application? Do you see any hands raised?
Seeing none, Madam Chair.
All right, so at this time, we would like a motion to be presented.
Motion to move it.
Second. Okay, moved by Commissioner Purdy and seconded by Vice Chair Miles.
Nope. Commissioner Austin.
Oh, there you are. There you are, Commissioner Austin. Pardon me. Miles, no. Moved by Commissioner Purdy, seconded by Commissioner Austin. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Commissioner Austin,
Yes.
Commissioner Purdy,
Yes.
Commissioner James.
Yes.
Commissioner Scott Roundtree,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner De Silva, Yes. Commissioner Spade stepped away. Commissioner Miles,
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Yes, so the application is approved. All right. So at this time, I'd like to present a motion that we go into executive session. Is that how I should do this, Mr. Plata? Because I see you knitting your eyebrows.
Yeah, no, I don't, if, we don't need, for the training, there's no reason to go into executive session. We can,
So we're going to do it publicly.
yeah, we could do it, publicly. Actually, I think we're required to.
Okay. All right. So folks who are on with us, we're going to indulge in a training. And you don't, now do they get to ask questions? Do members of the public get to ask questions regarding our training?
No, not usually.
All right.
I
So
mean,
you're
that's
just watching. So you're just watching.
Yeah.
All right. So are we ready, or do you need to have a break at this time? Mr. Proctor.
I think we're ready. If,
And we have a PowerPoint, Madam Chair, and which we're going to use as our framework, but at the same time, and Michael and I kind of put this together. Brooke's going to pull it up, but we will then give it to the board secretary so everybody can have it afterwards for reference if necessary, and hopefully this will be helpful.
All right.
So, Brooke, if you can pull it up, that would be great. And I'll just start with probably a lot of this, those board members that are on the board for a while will know some of this. But, it's always good to kind of go over it again. And then maybe the board members may find some new information that they didn't know before. So, Brooke, can you go to the second slide? Thank you. No, back to the first, yeah. And Michael and I are going to go back and forth, I think. So I'll start and then Michael, jump in.
okay.
One of the key aspects of your powers is to prepare and adopt the city master plan. And the master plan is really the planning board's document. It is and we'll get into a little bit more about that in a couple of the other slides, but that is really the key piece here that provides the basis for everything that this board does. And it really is the land use policy document of the city. You just went through this a couple of years ago and adopted a very comprehensive master plan, which, as I say, we'll go through a little bit, but that is a key piece to it. What you're used to is the second bullet, which is approving site plans, subdivisions, and conditional use applications. And the third bullet, which is approving what's called bulk or C variances associated with those applications. That's what this board is used to doing. But it's all based, again, I'm going to link it back to the master plan, the city master plan, and the zoning. The next bullet is you review and recommend capital projects. And a couple of months ago, you did one of those when there was improvements to one of the parks. And that, the municipal land use law, that's kind of the state law that kind of establishes what the planning board should do and must do, is any infrastructure or capital projects within the city. That can be road improvements, parks. It can be any kind of where you've where you have to provide funding for long-term capital projects. You have to review it and recommend those, because that, again, goes back to the master plan. Is it consistent with the city master plan? You act on the referrals of zoning amendments. Again, consistency with the master plan. And you did that a couple of months ago when there were changes to a couple of the zoning, the neighborhood zoning in some of the residential zones, neighborhood zones. And you had to review it and determine whether you felt it was consistent with the master plan. You just held a public hearing and made recommendations regarding redevelopment studies that is directed by city council. They ask you through a resolution to do that. And then the last, which I have not, is to consider redevelopment plans under the board's referral powers. So the second step, which we can go into a little later, but the second step of redevelopment is to designate and then to have and adopt a redevelopment plan. You as the board don't adopt a redevelopment plan, but you must look at it and make your recommendations about that. That is city council's final determination, because that is adopted by ordinance. Michael.
Yeah, I think, well, yeah, also from a legal perspective, once the planning board presents the master plan to the city council, and they're going to then amend the zoning ordinance, because the ordinance should reflect the master plan. The determinations and the reasoning and the policy reasoning set forth in the master plan are provided with such weight that for the city council to alter from the master plan, they actually have to provide their reasons for doing so. And when they're making when they're adopting the new zoning ordinance. So, this body really is a consultative body to the zoning board, to the city council. The master plan, even when, from a legal perspective, when you're considering even variances, it's very important that the board's reasoning is consistent with both the master plan and the zoning ordinance. So, there is a ton of weight and authority for this board with respect to, its relationship within city government. And I just want to interplay that with the zoning board. The zoning board really considers the variances. They have the sole jurisdiction over D variances. They also interpret the city ordinance, and they are the ones, that is the board that will review appeals from a zoning officer determination, from the Historic Commission, Environmental Commission determinations. So that's the kind of interplay between the two. And oftentimes, from a legal perspective, depending on what an applicant is presenting, it's important to understand a distinction because it goes to the jurisdiction of the individual boards. And that's why I'm kind of just giving the juxtaposition here. With that, for when this board oftentimes considers applications that involve C variances, that occurs when it's ancillary to the powers of the board with respect to reviewing site plans or subdivisions and conditional use applications. That's when this board has authority to consider C variances. And so that's where that jurisdiction comes into play. So it's very, you know, understanding the differences is important from a legal perspective because, for instance, if this board was to ever consider application with a D variance, it would, you know, the decision itself would be void because the board has no jurisdiction.
By the way, the reason it's called C and D is because within the municipal land use law, that state statute that really controls planning municipally, that portion of the where it talks about variances, it's 70C, and then the D is 70D, which talks about where the zoning board's jurisdiction is, and those are not only use variances, they're density variances, they're height, depending on the height, but height variances. Those are the three that are the key. It can also be, there are other D variances that are also part of that floor area ratio and others. But the key for this board really is the use, the density, and the height that come into play.
Yeah, I think also, you know, the board considers conditional use applications. If an application doesn't meet a condition, then that falls within the jurisdiction of the zoning board. They're the only one, that's the board that can give a variance with respect to a condition.
Are we able to chime in, or you want us to wait till the end of the presentation?
I would suggest we let you question anything that we've said or whatever, but it's the chair's prerogative.
Got you. Okay.
Commissioner.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, and it's funny because I just attended the last city council meeting, and a lot of the community residents were still a little bit confused to think that we as a land use board could override the new, you know, changes that the city council made per city ordinance. So I think a lot of the confusion, specifically when it related to KNS Group and a couple other applications, I'm sure, but specifically KNS Group, where you had literally, you know, like tens of residents, homeowners that came out for this particular project, where we obviously have no say in changing the use from, you know, typically single family homes. And now that the city council approved where you can do, you know, multiple, you know, high density projects. I guess, how do you explain that? And is there something that I guess as a board, we can do a better job of explaining that to the community where they understand that we have really no say when ordinances change such as that?
You have say, but you don't have say. And no, I mean, you did have say, okay?
Yeah, but I'm talking about a variance-free application, which.
Well, I know. Wait, and it really goes, maybe we go to the next, it goes to the master plan. When the board had the master plan, when there was this whole process of preparing the master plan in 2022, Brooke, maybe you can pull up the next, because this is it's important to know that in the next one too, but we'll get to this. So when the master plan was adopted, it went through a very significant public outreach process and very significant zoning recommendations, zoning changes, okay, what was proposed, okay? And at that point, and it's a huge document, as you well know, but it had to come to the planning board for your review and your consistency, your review, your comment, okay? It had to come to you. Now, you could have said, and I don't know what this board said, but let's assume that at that point, this board said, oh, we don't like some of the density proposed, da-da-da-da-da. Well, it goes back to, you could have changed the master plan to accommodate that and say, no, we don't want to increase the density here. We don't want to increase the density there. However, as shown here and as what we talked about, the plan is implemented through the zoning ordinance. And that's where you were getting, Commissioner. The zoning based upon the master plan is adopted by city council. So if the city council said, yeah, okay, you know, you may have said this in the master plan, but we want to do Y instead of X, and we want to rezone some of these areas, well, then they can, if they put on the record their reasons for not going with the master plan. There's a process that they have to say, oh, we're not going to do what the master plan says, but we want to do Y, but we have to say why we're going to go that way and not comply with the master plan. My understanding is that there was, and I think, Brooke, if you can go to the next one, because my understanding was some of the key goals of the master plan, one of which was upzone along key corridors. And I think that's one of the goals that came out of the master plan that provided the basis for the zoning that you're talking about. Now, I'm not providing that's good, that's bad, whatever. I'm just trying to give you some context here as to what happened. And I think that these were so you did have some influence, but not the ultimate influence in what happened with the zoning. The zoning is city council's jurisdiction as such. Can you comment on it? Yeah, absolutely. You have to, but you don't make that final determination. And that's where I think you're going, Commissioner.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's a good assessment.
All right. And I think just to piggyback off of what Commissioner James is saying, I think at this point, even though the public, right, had an opportunity to chime into this phone book of a document, right? It seems like, and it may not be under the auspices of the zoning or the planning boards, but perhaps under the auspices of the city or city council, to do some level of education or communication with regards to those distinctions so that people are understanding what the process is.
Totally agree with you.
Yeah, I agree. But I don't think that doesn't mean when the public is before the boards that we can also educate them at that point so they understand the process. You know, I know that especially with the KS group, it was a tough pill for them to swallow. But I do think once we kind of gave an explanation, at least some of them understood, you know, that you had a variance-free application before you, and you had very limited, if any, discretion. You know, and also, you know, understanding that, because I think you're always gonna hear traffic and parking, but it's not always gonna be an issue, and sometimes that needs to be explained. And procedurally, it probably may be something that needs to be explained because the public will keep bringing it up. And at some point, if it gets redundant, especially if an application is going on and on, that's how you're able to kind of cut it off, because it's really not matter before the board or before the board's consideration. You know, but at least they understand what's happening, you know, and I think that, so there are, yes, the administration and the city council can do a little better outreach, but I think some of that, if the public's before us, we should take that opportunity also to do some of that education.
Received.
And we will get into a little bit of our thoughts on some of that in a couple of the slides a little later. But, you know, I don't know whether everyone, I assume everybody has a copy of the 2022 master plan as you held up, Madam Chair, the book, the phone book of that. And I really believe that all members should have a copy, whether it's paper or whether it's online, and particularly focus on the goals and objectives and the land use plan element. Brooke, can you go back to the slide before? Just because, yeah, that's Appendix I is the land use plan element. Now, why that's the appendix, I don't know, but that's probably the key piece to one of the key pieces to the master plan is the land use plan element, because the zoning has to be consistent with the land use plan element and the recommendations in there. So not sure why it was Appendix I, but it is. And again, you know, as Michael and I have been saying, there's this process, there's this, you know, the master plan provides the basis. That's the cornerstone, as we say, to the zoning. The master plan is the policy document. And then from there, the zoning ordinance is the zoning is supposed to implement the master plan recommendations, particularly from the land use plan element. There are two considerations from the master plan, and I'm diverting a little bit, but one of it is zoning and all that. The other is capital. And, you know, again, we talked a little bit about capital projects and how they have to come in front of the planning board. So it's both the zoning and it's how you spend the money to be able to implement a lot of the policies that's in the master plan, because it's not just the land use plan element. It's circulation, it's community facilities, it's parks and open space, it's sustainability, it's all those aspects of development and the quality of life of the city. So so it's great bedtime reading. If you have trouble going to sleep at night, start reading that. That'll do it for you, okay? You'll go right to sleep. But, okay, Brooke, if you can move this forward. And again, these are just, those are the key goals that were part of the master plan. Some of them were land use, as we talked about. Some of them were infrastructure, sustainability, quality of life stuff. So then we get to, okay, you've got your master plan, you've got your zoning in place. Now what happens? The board hears applications. And as you well know, you have minor site plans, minor subdivisions, preliminary and final site plan, and preliminary and final subdivision approvals. And as we have stated, if the application complies with all ordinance requirements, it pretty much has to be approved. There's no basis for it. You may not like, and this is where it gets kind of dicey. You may not like what the zoning says. You may not like what translates into a development application, but that's what it is. It is based upon, again, the zoning, the master plan and the zoning. And if the zoning is what it says and it complies, then it has to be pretty much approved. Michael,
I think it's usually, you must approve it. I mean, they're very limited exceptions, and usually they don't really wouldn't come into play at this level. Obviously, if if a application creates some type of health safety type issue, that that would be another consideration. But really, those things, in my experience, that doesn't happen before this board. What tends to happen is, for instance, they have the board approves a daycare center because it's a permitted use, and there's everything is the site plan, everything is acceptable. But then throughout the process, you may, the Department of Water and Sewer may determine that there's not enough water capacity or something like that, and then the application may never come to fruition for those reasons. But that's usually something that happens down the line, not something this board would even be able to address. I have seen that happen in the past.
And so, and if it's not, it does not comply, then you have to grant variances or exceptions or whatever to have it approved as such. And whatever conditions you may want to place on the applicant.
Yeah, if not, it should be denied, right?
Yeah.
And when you can, oftentimes, and I've seen this happen in the past, when an applicant becomes before the board, they don't meet certain requirements, and then they agree to satisfy it as a condition of approval. So ultimately, you have a fully conforming application before you, which I think is kind of what happened with the KS Group application. I guess you also, if there's going to be a variance relief and it falls within the jurisdiction of this board, then you'll go through that process of consideration, which we're going to discuss in a later slide.
Yeah. Okay, Brooke, if you can forward. Okay. So we talked about the C variances, bulk variances, because you have constantly applications with variances. The one that seems to be fairly consistent, and we won't get into the merits of it, but I'll just say the undersized lot scenarios with, that would be under the current ordinance, that would be is a C variance. And as you know, because you see the testimony on it all the time, is that there is positive and negative criteria that's set up. See, there's 40:55C-70C. That's actually, I don't think there's a C in there, but it's that's where the C comes in, because that's under the municipal land use law. And that's the statewide law that provides the basis for every municipality to follow. But you have to balance the positive and negative criteria. And what we put here is zoning by ordinance and not by variance is preferred. So, if you find that there is a wholesale change with granting C variances, that's not really the best way of addressing the application or the goals of the master plan. It doesn't, it's got to be very specific to the property pretty much as to how this board evaluates C variances. That's where I would say. Michael?
Yeah, with respect to that evaluating variances, and we put there that the MLUL provides procedures and substantive basis. I think from a legal perspective, when the board is going through that analysis, it's acting in a quasi judicial fashion. So we should really, the board and myself should really be mindful of protecting the record, because if if it does get appealed or challenged, the courts look at the record below, they look at the transcript, they look at the resolutions. The resolutions themselves are basically they're the written opinions of the board, and they provide the justification. So, the statute and the case law has already acknowledged that objectors have the right to question the witnesses. They also have the right to present their own cases with respect to why they're objecting. They have the right to present witnesses of their own, especially expert witnesses. And it's something that, this board needs to consider when you're dealing with objectors. I think it, I've only been involved since April, and I think the board itself has been pretty fair. But, the one thing I would point out though is that the objectors with respect to questioning should not necessarily be limited by time. If they have questions and they're specific, especially if they're specific to a certain witness that an applicant put on, they should be able to ask those questions. It doesn't mean that they're able to do things that would cause delay or ask questions that are relevant. Obviously, that's something that should be controlled and stopped, but they do have the right to do that. And if they do mention that they have their own witnesses, hopefully, and actually they should tell the board beforehand, especially if an objector has an attorney, that they have their own witnesses and that they intend to present, so that the applicant is aware also and can address that. So, when we get some of these bigger applications with objectors, especially with attorneys involved, the board has to be mindful of that, because the board, when if it gets appealed and I'm in front of a judge, I want to be able to defend the opinion on the substantive reasons, and I really would hate for something to get remanded on a procedural aspect that could have been avoided.
And Michael, if, and this is always an interesting consideration. If an applicant has an objecting group, say it's a neighborhood group, has hired an attorney, and that attorney represents, say, 10 people, those 10 people then can't keep getting up because they have hired an attorney?
Yeah, they shouldn't speak at all. They shouldn't be
They
permitted to speak at
can't
all.
speak because they have an attorney, correct?
The attorney speaks, yes.
Okay.
And the attorney should always tell us who they're representing.
Yes.
Now, is there a way for them to communicate that in advance, or that's something that we would manage as the chairs?
Usually, oftentimes when an attorney is going to represent objectors, they do reach out, in my experience, at least the board secretary or the attorney to advise, but it's not always the case. So when you get on and someone wants to be let in as an attorney, they have them make their appearance, who they represent, and then we can proceed from there. We can ask who they represent and if they intend to present any witnesses. And the courts are very sensitive to this, to the point where if objectors need more time, and if it's reasonable, let's say they request, an extra hearing date, that's usually something that should seriously be considered. And I would say, unless there's been some delay tactics, and they've had plenty of opportunity, I think it would be in the applicant's and the board's best interest to grant that additional time, because the court really do look at that from a procedural perspective.
So when we're speaking of additional time, are we speaking about adjourning and continuing into a next meeting? Are we talking about specials? What are we speaking about when we're talking about additional time?
Usually it would be just to a next meeting date, not a special. Unless the applicant is prepared to do that because they have time constraints, usually it would just be the next meeting date. And the reason why I say it also is in the applicant's benefit, because if the court is reviewing and they find a procedural basis to remand, that's just further delay for the applicant.
And actually, that happened with this board this year. There was a remand based upon, I think it was this year, maybe it was the end of last year, but there was a remand based on a procedural issue, not a substantive issue. And I think the board recalls that.
And Michael, could you clarify and I guess legally define an objector? Because obviously that's a vague term. So what do you mean by objector? Are you just...
So usually, I guess the better phrase from we say objectors, but usually I think it's persons of interest, or persons with an interest in an application, whether they're, as some neighboring property owner or neighboring residents, or even people within the community that just have an interest, because they're concerned with whatever conditions the application may affect the community, the surrounding area. Those people have the right to be heard. They have the right to ask questions. I noticed that this board tends to wait until the applicant puts on their case and then allow the community to ask questions, which is fine as long as they get the opportunity. But I think it's more common, and I've seen it done where after a witness is put on and they testify, the board asks questions, the board's experts ask questions. Many boards will allow the community to ask those questions just to move the application along.
Does it move it along, or would it belabor the conversation?
That's what I'm saying. It would prolong the meeting, if anything.
Well, if they're asking repetitive questions, you could cut them off. I mean, that's the chair has a lot of discretion in that regard, but it will make it. I think it does make it a little more orderly, because if you wait to the end, and let's say there was 4 witnesses, 3 witnesses, and then you have to call those witnesses back up if they want to ask direct questions. And then so you have to call them back up, have them ask their questions. And then if, let's say, another interested person wants to ask questions, when they come up and they want to ask another witness, you got to bring up and maybe bring someone back. So you have to, you have to kind of juggle that. So there's pros and cons to both, I guess, procedures or processes, but you just gotta keep. I think timing is important, but I think what's more important, what's more important, at least from a legal perspective, is that the record is clear and protected, so that when it's getting reviewed by the court, there's not procedural deficiencies.
And I would agree with Michael that what we've seen as the common approach is after each witness, then everyone asks questions only of that witness. Now, comments are held to the end, at the very end of the public hearing. Then if anyone has comments regarding the application, then that's when that occurs. But questions, I've seen that most of the time, that it's after each witness questions are asked.
And comments are usually, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and they're timed.
Yeah.
Not 5 minutes. We talk about 3 minutes, right?
I'm just saying what other boards do. I mean, yeah.
I'm not worried about what other boards do at this point.
So, but
3
with,
minutes is good for comments. 3
yeah,
minutes.
3 minutes is fine. In my experience, most people won't even take up to 3 minutes. And then what you find with the questioning,
So this,
they'll last 1 or 2. They don't usually go on and on. It's usually if the objectors have an attorney, that's a little different. But the public usually, because if someone has a specific question, once it's asked, the public is not going to keep coming on asking the same question.
now we know a little different than that. So where I'm stuck is, right? I'm wondering if this is the distinction that has allowed planning right, as compared to what we know happens with zoning, right? So if the thought is that we're going to work on however many applications until 11 p.m., if we're going to stop with each professional and allow members of the public to question each professional, then when we have to revisit the pipeline, right? And how many items we're putting on the agenda.
Yeah, I agree, especially contentious applications that we know there could be potentially, 30, 40 people coming just for that one particular application.
You are extremely, from my experience, extremely efficient and move applications much quicker than most other boards. Okay? I am amazed at how quickly you move applications along. Now, the good news is you move applications along. The bad news may be semi-bad. Maybe you move all applications along. Maybe, I don't know, maybe as we've talked about, maybe there's some that maybe shouldn't be moved along as quickly. I don't know that, but I'm just noting that.
I don't know. This conversation is starting to sound like it's going above our heads, doesn't it? It does, because if we're talking about moving projects, right, efficiently, right, moving them expeditiously.
You are, yeah.
Right, but at present, so if what I'm hearing, and I don't know, maybe you all can qualify, it's this recommendation coming from, if you can, right, given that this is a public conversation, is the recommendation that we that we alter the way in which the public is heard? Is that something that has been stated by the judges that are hearing some of the cases or the complaints with regards to some of the applications of late?
Well, we know that it's my understanding that at least one application was remanded because the public didn't, I guess the court felt didn't have sufficient time to ask their questions. We have a pending case now with a similar issue. I don't want to talk about it in public. We could talk about it in executive session. I would say that the difference though between planning and zoning is that most of the applications that I've seen, with the exception of a few, have not been very controversial. And I think that's why you all are able to move them much quicker. Versus zoning, where they're dealing with D variances, which usually mean the use is not permitted, or the building is way oversized in terms of height or density, and so they have, they have more issues, I would say, with some of their applications, or most of their applications, and so the public does usually show up. So I think that's some of the difference. But I do think, if there's a project coming in the pipeline that may draw a lot of attention, you may want to limit that hearing date to maybe 2 or 3 applications. I mean, one application and several subdivisions, because they're quicker, subdivisions with no variance or something like that, and unfortunately, I think the Madam Secretary and Madam Chair will have to kind of review that together. I can tell you on the zoning board, the board secretary does not have permission to put more than, I think, 4 items on the agenda without approval, or 3 or something like that. And, this is an ongoing thing. I mean, they really do kind of look at their agendas and the applications that are being put on.
Yeah, Michael's right. I mean, most of your applications are fairly straightforward, and you don't have a lot of public pushback, I guess I'll say. So,
Received, this is a conversation for us to have and to also include, Ms. Shinday.
So, would you like, Madam Chair, would you like us to continue since we've been?
Please continue.
Okay, so we're gonna go to what is considered the positive criteria. And there are 2, you've heard planners testify on this, but there's the C1 hardship criteria where there's specific physical conditions of the property that create a hardship for it to meet whatever that standard is. And most of the time, what you have heard, at least since I've been involved, are the C2 flexible criteria, which is that the application would be, or the, would be advanced by a deviation in the zoning ordinance, and the benefits would substantially outweigh any detriments. That's what you normally hear, but under the flexible C2 criteria, you have to reconcile that with the purposes of zoning. And those are, here we go, Brooke, the purposes of zoning, and that's why maybe, having this, that's under the municipal land use law again. And what we've done is, and you've heard it by the planners, there are a number, actually we have them on 2 or 3 pages here, a number of purposes of zoning that are identified in the municipal land use law. And that's what many of your planners for these applications rely on. They reference, say, G, they reference D, whatever and you can, Brooke, if you can continue with they're like, here we go, M, coordination of public and private procedures and activities, lessening the cost. And they reference those as the purposes of zoning, which is the C2 aspect of the positive criteria. Now, we are assuming, although tonight this happened, and I thought we didn't put it in here, but inherently beneficial uses, that is a term that, like a church or 100% affordable project, both of those are considered to be inherently beneficial uses. And if they are inherently beneficial uses, they in its own meet the positive criteria under C variances. So that in itself, but that's unusual. Normally it would have to be through a private developer and not inherently beneficial. But it can't be just for the benefits of the applicant. It has to go to the public welfare. And that's where the negative criteria comes in. Brooke, if you can continue with this to get to the negative criteria. So we talked about the positive criteria, and then they also have to meet the negative criteria. And that is that it's granted without substantial detriment to the public good, which is really impact on the surrounding properties or area, and that it's granted without creating substantial detriment to the master plan again. This is where the master plan comes in. So you'll note, because most of the planners that testify in front of this board know what they have to provide for the basis for their variances, that they talk about these things. But these are very important aspects that have to be evaluated. And again, it can't be based upon the benefit to the applicant. It has to be based upon the benefit to the public. So, Michael, I don't know whether there's.
Yeah, it's always the case is it has to be a better zoning opportunity for the public overall, the community overall. And even with the C1 hardship criteria, it can be a hardship that the applicant created.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
You know, it has to be something that's existed and it's unique to that property. You know, but even then, you know, it can't be something that, they subdivided the lot and made it too shallow or too small, and then they want to put something too big on it. It wouldn't meet those standards.
Right. It can't be a self-created hardship. They ask for a subdivision and then they say, oh, now we need a variance because we can't, a setback variance because they can't meet the setback because the lot's too small, but they're the ones that created the subdivision.
Yeah, you usually hear with respect to the benefits analysis, you're usually gonna hear general welfare. It's usually A, G, I, and M.
Yeah.
It's general welfare, they're the aesthetics of a new building, efficiency of land. So you kind of hear the planners repeat the same purposes, but that's where they're getting it from, the statute.
Yeah. So those are the aspects. Those again go back to the master plan, the negative criteria, and whether it's a substantial detriment to the master plan and the public good, of course. But okay, so the next is some of our thoughts, just which we talked about to a point. The planning board is not required to deny a variance. I mean, they don't have to grant a variance. The planning board must base its decisions on evidence, not opinion. So if somebody gets up, a member of the public, and says, oh, the traffic is horrible because it's always traffic or parking. Well, that's fine, but that's an opinion. That's not evidence per se. And so, that's a consideration. The board can only act as a body, not as individuals, which you know that, I think. An application with no variances, which is what we talked about before, should not be denied from a planning or legal perspective. And the last one, and certainly I think both Michael and I can attest to the fact that it's this planning board is not the only planning board in the state that deals with this issue, which is always, oh my gosh, traffic is horrible. Why are we permitting this? But if it's a permitted use, then you cannot deny it based upon traffic. You may deny it on another basis, but if the use is permitted, then the rationale is then when that was zoned for that use, traffic was a consideration. And if the governing body determined that use was permitted, then they knew what the impact of traffic would be, and therefore that was already in the consideration. So the planning board can't kind of come up with their own conclusion on traffic, which is contrary to what the zoning permits. Michael, is that?
Yeah, that's right. There are obviously each member of the board lives, resides in Newark. They have their own personal knowledge. If they are gonna base or to some extent base some of their decisions or reasoning on that personal knowledge, then they should state that on the record, what their personal knowledge is, so that they make it part of the record. When we say that the board acts as a body and not as individuals, oftentimes you'll hear that the board voted without deliberation, and which is fine. The board doesn't have to deliberate. It is encouraged because to have those conversations in the public, but also when you do deliberate, just because one member made a statement doesn't necessarily mean that was the basis for determination, because the board speaks as one unit, and really that the decision and the reasons for that decision are set forth in the resolution. And that's what the court considers. So oftentimes, although comments may get referred to, when there are appeals, they only hold but so much weight, because individual board members are speaking on behalf of themselves, not the board. And that's kind of what they're saying there. Now, the resolutions, as I said, kind of act as the opinion for the board. So it sets out the board's findings of fact, conclusions of law, obviously those members that voted for that action are the members that should vote on that resolution. And this is in theory, and I know that's happened before, so it's not only in theory, it's happened in practice. If a member disagrees with a resolution, they're well within their rights to write a dissent or reasons why they disagree and submit that to the board secretary, and it'll be part of the record. So that's how involved the board can be with respect to the resolution process.
I think one of the aspects which I know I've heard Michael ask, for those members that may have missed a portion of a meeting or have missed a meeting, they have to certify that they've read the transcript or whatever to be able to vote on it.
Yeah, it has to be a written certification. So we would attach it to the resolution.
We're almost done. And is everybody still awake, or are you, have we put you all asleep?
No, we're good. We're here.
Okay. And I have to say before we move on, I have to say from my perspective, and I've been a board planner in many municipalities in the state of New Jersey, and you are one of the better boards, I must say. So with everything that we're saying and suggesting or not, I must say that you run a very good meeting. So I could show you some boards where it's like, are you kidding me? But, and I'm sure Michael would say the same thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh. You want to just kind of put your head down and go someplace else. But, okay, Brooke, if you can, and this is just real quick, the redevelopment planning process. Now that's not under the municipal land use law. That's a separate statute that deals with the statutory redevelopment, which sometimes people get all confused about that. But I just thought that we would just briefly talk about that process, just to kind of let you know. As you tonight went through step 1 and step 2, a study was prepared to designate it as a redevelopment area, whether it was condemnation or non-condemnation. And that study is initiated by City Council. And then the planning board holds the hearing, which it did tonight, and makes recommendation to City Council. If City Council designates the area, and that's by normal resolution, you are the ones that hold the public hearing. They don't have to have a public hearing on it, where it's noticed and everything. Then a redevelopment plan is created, and City Council can either create a redevelopment plan or they can ask the planning board to, and it's adopted, but one way or the other, it's adopted by ordinance by City Council. But it again, here we go with the referral powers. We've said one of your referral powers is to, that draft plan has to come to you for your comment and recommendation. And then the step 4 is implementation of the plan, which is beyond the planning board, but it's just something that thought that we would say there. And
So if a commissioner is affiliated with a redevelopment plan, then I'm assuming they can't make any recommendations or anything. They have to kind of just.
Well, that's interesting, you would write, because one of our last slides was going to be on conflict and ethics. And I think that goes to what you were asking, Commissioner.
Okay.
Right? Am I?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we just have real quick on redevelopment planning and what goes into a redevelopment plan. And you have many redevelopment plans that are, and some of them are what I would say old and need updating. And that is something that we've had conversations about that. And Brooke, if you could up the next slide, the required elements of a redevelopment plan are goals and objectives, use and bulk regulations, if there's any relocation proposed, if there's any properties to be acquired, and then how it sounds and relationship to adjacent municipalities, county and state. And then it has to say whether the standards supersede the underlying zoning or whether it's an overlay on the zoning. So it's just, a lot of it is like what would be in a master plan, like goals and objectives, and statement of how it relates to other plans. And then some of it is like zoning. It's the use of bulk standards and whether it's an overlay or supersede. So it's really a hybrid of master plan and zoning, but it is adopted by ordinance and it is important. So you have a number of plans in your city that we evaluate a lot of the applications that come in based upon the redevelopment plans. So we thought it was important to just note that. So the last slide, Brooke, is there, planning up. I don't think that.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, there was.
So wait, you skipped a slide. Go back. Let's see. Oh no, you didn't. All right.
And the last one was there was an update to that with Michael's stuff, but that's okay.
It's okay. I wanted to note that the planning board bylaws, I've reviewed them. They're very thorough. They're consistent with the law, and they're a great guideline that I think each member should review and refer to. You don't have to memorize it, but you can have it handy during meetings. And, I think that Rule 2.2, which addresses hearing procedure, sets forth the procedure for the hearings, including what to do with interested persons, what their rights are, when to allow them the question, uh, you know, the order of presentation. I don't know when these bylaws were adopted, but they, I would say they're fairly good. So I would encourage you to review them. Rule 2.2 is hearing procedure. Rule 2.3 deals with voting. Uh, you know, Technically, every action of the board should be voted upon, and it's something that.
Sorry, Mike, I just put on the corrected.
No, there was,
No, that's not it.
that's not it either. No, there,
Yeah.
that's it.
Technically, every action of the board should be voted upon. So, even, let's say adjournments. If someone comes before the board and they're gonna request an adjournment, that should be, the board should determine whether or not they're gonna act on it, whether they're gonna approve the adjournment request. It's not necessarily something that's administrative. There may be instances where a member or certain members don't agree an adjournment is justified, and they may vote no. We don't know unless you take the vote. So technically, every action of the board should be voted on. I think too, with resolutions, even though it may be somewhat of a pain, they should probably be voted on individually, because only the members that voted for the action are allowed to vote on the resolution. And if there is a question with respect to the voting, it may be a procedural basis for the court to send it back. Which, hurts, doesn't look good for the board, and it hurts the applicant, especially if it was an application that was approved, because now they're just gonna have further delay. Rule 2.4 deals with other hearing requirements and procedures. I think that's just in general something that should be reviewed. But Rule 4.3 addresses disqualifications for interest. It was kind of in line with the prior email that I sent about a week ago with respect to conflicts of interest. There are certain things that are absolute conflicts. So if you're within that 200 feet of an application, if you live within 200 feet of application, you're conflicted. If you're related to the applicant, you're conflicted. If you have whether it's an indirect or direct, pecuniary interest in the application, you're conflicted. And obviously, if it's your employer or employee, you are conflicted. And then it's a very fact-sensitive analysis. If, for instance, the court has found that if a member has a material relationship with their physician, and the physician appears before the board as an applicant, they may be conflicted out. If your attorney appears before the board, you may be conflicted out. Ideally, I know everyone's busy, but when the agenda's sent out, hopefully it's sent out early enough, the day before, or whenever the secretary sends it out. Every member looks at the applications, see if they may have conflict of interest, and they can we can have that conversation beforehand and not on the record, because I don't think that's necessarily the time to do it. I do understand that, for instance, last time the objectors appeared, and that, because of relationships with the objector, that created a conflict. That's hard. That's a tougher one to go by. I understand why that may happen during the application, but to the extent that you're aware of application or aware of potential conflicts or you're not sure, I think you always reach out to me. We can discuss it. If I need to do some research, I can, because like I said, it is a very fact sensitive analysis. It really does depend on whether or not you may feel a conflict with respect to your personal interest or an interest to the applicant versus your duty as a member. It's not necessarily just because because you'll have some people from the community say, oh, there's a conflict, and they put reasons, and there's no real basis to it. And so there are things that need to be discussed. I think, for instance, just to give you an example, someone may, if let's say you're a politician, someone may donate to your campaign. That doesn't automatically create a conflict. I think the conflict really is whether or not there's a conflict really is whether or not you believe you have to vote a certain way because you received that money. And I think there's a big difference too between someone giving you $20 versus someone that's giving you what's allowed, the max permitted under the law. And even then it may not necessarily rise to the level of conflict of interest. And that's what I'm saying, it's very fact sensitive. It may be a one-time donation versus a donor who's done it for years or on years, and you personally feel that you have a conflict, and then that would be enough. But so I do think that it's important to look at the applications in a pipeline, and if you think there's going to be some type of conflict, we can discuss it. If you know there's going to be a conflict, you should let us know beforehand, because it does affect quorum, and we need to make sure that we can meet quorum. Because if not, what happens is then we have to get members from the zoning board to sit on the application just for that one application.
Commissioner Austin, did that answer your question? Did Michael answer your question?
Yes. Yes, I'm clear. Thank you.
But I received the bylaws from the board secretary. I reviewed them, and I do think they're consistent with the law. They're pretty well written. I'm not sure who wrote them. I'm not sure when they were drafted, but I do think they're pretty solid. There was nothing that jumped out at me that necessarily needed to be changed. I also would like to point out they can be amended. I think, for instance, the bylaws say that you're not supposed to consider a new application after 10:30. And that you have pretty much a hard stop at 11. Obviously, if the board feels that needs to be adjusted, they can amend that. The board, these bylaws address rehearings, but they don't address reconsideration. If you want to have procedures for reconsideration, we can amend the bylaws to put, to include that. So it's a living document that the board should own and review.
I have a question to the board. Are there any suggestions that we as the professionals can do to modify what we're doing right now to make it better for the board? Do you have any suggestions for us?
Commissioners, I want you all to speak before I say what I'm thinking.
Uh-oh.
All right, so no takers. So I really wish Commissioner Jordan was on here. Just because she even has more time and with regards to the board than Commissioner Purdy and, well, possibly, no, Jermaine, Commissioner James may have the longest standing, like, tenure in relationship to this board of all the folks that are sitting now. But I'm just thinking with regards to experience acting in this role, the pipeline is heavy, right? And of late, going until 11 o'clock when we're also having day jobs, and this may, I don't know how we manage this from a business side, can be intense. So that if we go back to the earlier comment with regards to the amount of time that objectors are given to question or provide comment, and then the process by which they provide question or comment, there has to be some consideration for the amount of time that we're asking folks to put in for the small remuneration that people are receiving, right? So that it might not be feasible to ask the planning board to meet week after week after week after week. We're even having a regular meeting, then we're having a special. We're having a regular meeting and a special with no break going until 11 o'clock. I don't think that that's something that's sustainable.
Nope.
And I'll leave it at that.
May I comment as well? Madam Chair?
Certainly.
So can you bring the screen back up, Brooke? Please. I'm sorry, Commissioner. I just didn't want the screen to be.
You want me to get off the screen?
No, just bring it back to seeing everybody. That's all.
Relinquish the screen. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. I'm sorry.
So of course, as you did mention earlier, good evening again, everyone. You did mention earlier that Commissioner James probably has the longest standing. Was it 10 years, Commissioner James? Relationship, understanding, and even as I look around at the commissioners that are on, I am 1000%. Not everybody on here is on here for an enumeration. Some folks are on here because they want to be a part of the process, have been selected to be a part of the process, and you are 1000. I'm used to late hours, but it is amazing when I didn't know that it would be every week. And if that's what it requires, that's fine. But where do we
There has to be.
draw the line to say, wait a minute now, or who are we accommodating here, and why are we doing this, and who's making the calls, and who's making the decisions for me to make these accommodations for these projects? If things are done right when they're supposed to be, then we don't have to make the accommodations. A lot of times we're coming back because something wasn't right. We want to accommodate the developer, we want to accommodate the lawyers. So we're trying to do our due diligence and accommodations, but nobody's thinking about the accommodations of those of us who, and listen, I can work 24 hours a day. Jermaine and Camilla, they know, like, hour has no value to me, but I'm taking into consideration all of you. Those of you who have other demanding jobs that after being on here, hearing everybody cuss you out, go off and go crazy about things they don't agree with, and then you have to sit here and make a decision that might not be so popular, but those who went off on you during the whole process that you really had no control over the particular development or decision other than to be a commissioner for the Central Planning Board. So I am 1000% in agreement with Madam Chair that there has to be some consideration. Maybe we have to do a better job considering what's coming before us and how important it is for people to do what they're supposed to do. So when it gets to us, they're not asking us for a favor to come back. Is that a good way to put it?
Seems succinct to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I test, and I don't want to age myself, but Chair, you're right. I was appointed in 2006, And that was when obviously Sharp James, pretty much had all the appointees.
Baby, then that's more than 10 years.
So-
That's 20 years.
I said I didn't want to age myself. but the mayor did kick me off in 2014, then brought me back in 2017. So I did have a little, I guess, hiatus. But yeah, we've never had it where we met every week, let alone every other week. And I guess that attests to the amount of development the city is doing. I know there were talks about an auxiliary board where there would be more than one board to help, soften the amount of, applications that were in the pipeline. And I know a lot of that was due to COVID, et cetera, when we transitioned from being in person to virtual. But yeah, I think Chair is correct. I think it just kind of intensifies the amount of pressure it puts on board members to stay focused on the applications itself, and then two, just essentially doing this on a weekly basis, and like the chair said, everyone on this board, is a professional, has multiple jobs for the most part. Most of us are community leaders. Most of us are involved, in some type of political activities or, community engagement, et cetera. So it's just a lot to do when we're meeting, more than any other time in my tenure since 2006 that I could recall. So.
Well, there's two things that I observe. I think number one, the special meetings are at the pleasure of the board. So you guys have, in theory, should have some control over that. You don't have to grant specials. But I think what happened in Newark, at least, is when they changed the zoning ordinance and they upzoned, a lot of the applications from the zoning board was transferred. And then you had applications coming down the pipeline that were now permitted or didn't need the variances. And now the planning board is seeing much more applications. When 2 years ago, if you wanted an adjournment in the zoning board, you're lucky if you get it within 9 months. The pipeline was so backed up. And if you remember, at some point, they even had a supplemental zoning board.
Okay, give me 1 minute.
Which I think they did a little too late in the process, because then the ordinance changed and we didn't need it anymore. But now, the zoning board, if you ask for an adjournment, you probably get one within 2 months. It's not as heavy. And I think some of that transition that you're seeing is an effect of what the changes that the master plan imposed in the zoning ordinance.
Not only that, I would pick up on what Michael was saying is a lot, well, not a lot, some of your applications would not even come in front of the board if they were just conforming and they just pulled a permit. But there are many applications that come in for variances for applicants, smaller applications that really could just pull a permit if they just developed what was intended to be developed on some of the lots. They would just pull it and you'd never hear it.
So even the process, Madam Chair, may I speak? So even, were you finished, honey?
Yes, I was.
So even the process has changed. The process has changed. And I gather that has to do with based on the amount of development that is going on, and based on our resolutions, and based on what the council votes on, and based on those type of changes. And that is affecting even our process. I don't know what we're going to, how this is going to be rectified, because while we're talking about not being on till 11, we signed up for this. So Madam Twiller, when it comes through, like, there's some things we can't change, or we can change it, then we will probably be back. We might be back more consistently, because every time you have to cut off a meeting at 11, when it's up for, but we got to come back. And we can't come back 6 months later. Isn't that correct? It affects people's funding. It affects, there's so many things that, am I right, Commissioner James? Some of the things that go into what comes before us can affect the development. if it's not approved by us within a certain amount of time. Is that correct?
Yeah, I will say also, obviously, and this affects all of us, especially those who were on a board prior to COVID, but you tend to get a lot more public participation virtually than you do in person. You know, obviously, as all of you know, when you attend a city council meeting,
Yes.
you know, you may have the same, you know,
Same
5 to 10 people
crew.
that come to city council. However, if they went virtual, I'm pretty sure you'll have probably at least 10 times more. So I have seen a lot more increase in terms of public participation and you know, speakers. And we're one of the few boards that didn't go back in person. I know Jersey City, who I have colleagues on, their boards, you know, went back. I'm as
Let me
well as
ask you a
other
question.
cities. So I just
When
don't
you
know if
finish-
maybe that could help alleviate some of the
Yes.
issues. But like I said, I don't know how people feel because obviously being virtual helps our flexibility too, you know, tremendously. So it's like kind of give or take. But I can say the meetings have been a lot longer when we switched over virtual than they were prior to us being in City Hall.
So is that ever going to be an option again? I mean, I know virtual is convenient for some, but is that ever going to be an option? Do we plan to be virtual for the rest of our lives, according to city rules and regulations and our assignment? Was it ever an option that we might go back in person? Or it was never discussed until we started talking about the 11 o'clock hour?
I haven't had any.
We are addressing that too, Council. Like, I think that's an administrative decision.
Right, that's what I'm saying. My point is, it's a question. I know that none of you probably, I mean, you can give your opinion, but, of what you think, but has that ever been a discussion after COVID? No? Okay, just.
And I think you have a more likelihood of getting a quorum virtually than you would in person.
Mm-hmm.
So that's you know, summertimes, as we all know, hard, whether it's virtual or in person, but I do know that I think virtual does help when it comes to be accessible, not just for us, but also for professional planners and those who, you know, testify before the board, you know, throughout the state. But you know, I think there's pros and cons, but that's not, you know, my purview, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I absolutely understand, Commissioner James. Well, I'm here to do whatever's necessary as a commissioner that's in the best interest of the entire body as we move forward, whatever the plans are for all of us. I'm thankful for this training, which I did my own research, by the way, Madam Chair, because I wanted to make sure that I'm ethical and on point. Sometimes, you know, if you don't know what you're talking about, don't open your mouth, because you don't, people will really know how stupid you are. So you just, so if I'm not sure of a thing, I'll text the chair and say, excuse me, can I ask you a question? But anyway, it's an honor working with all of you. And Elizabeth, I've already worked with for many years, and Commissioner James and Camila. So, Brother Purdy, whatever we're going to do. Now, how much longer will we be on tonight? Just a question.
11:57 for you.
You know, well, that's fine because I can just go ahead and
You could
get my clothes out and just jump in the shower and get ready
I
for
wish
my next event.
You got to bottle some of that energy. Please send it over.
I'll just go ahead and put my clothes out. Let me go. I'm at home. Let me go see what I'm going to wear tomorrow. Let me just go ahead and go in the closet and just go ahead and take my shower and get dressed and just leave the house. I'll get to stay on the Zoom and y'all will see me on my way to work.
Lord have mercy. All right.
We're
But
done.
really, what do we do? Is the presentation completed?
We are complete. That's our PowerPoint. We can get it to everybody. But
Great.
if anyone has any questions or would like additional
If you send a slide deck, can you link the bylaws to it?
Yeah, that would be good. And Madam Chair, does it make sense to link the master plan if possible? But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think everyone has it.
Or at least the land use plan element, that piece. The other piece, all of it may be too big, but the land use plan element may be more accessible.
All right, because I wonder if there are even any hard copies left around.
Yeah, that's a good question. We'll see what, we'll get you as much as we can.
Any document can be added to Google Drive and shared through Google Drive link. There's a size limit to a Google Drive download.
Okay.
Not like a direct email has a size limit.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I will need at least 15 minutes.
All right, because we have to go back through minutes resolution?
Yeah.
Did you say 15 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, sir, let me go on mute so I can hear you.
I guess Palave was requesting that the application that was heard this evening, that a resolution be issued, if it was approved. So my associate has been working in the background and conferring with, she's just sent it to me, so I just need to review it and I can circulate it to the board. I guess we can come back and vote on it, but.
So about how long do you need?
About 15 minutes.
All right, so I'd like to present a motion to go into recess for 15 minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right, so we're gonna go into
And
recess.
I don't have a choice. Aye.
Aye, that's right. Let me catch my business. All right, so we'll be back 15 minutes from now is what? I don't know, 10:00 something. 10:06. Is that it? I don't know.
10:04?
I don't count. All right. Look. You're gonna put a note up. It's
10:06. Okay.